Right, members, if you don't mind, I've got an announcement to make before we actually start. I wonder if people are in agreement to defer item number 9 on the agenda, paragraph B. So it's B, because the applicant for the petition is unfortunately not here today. So if we can defer it so the person can actually attend, we'd be very grateful if we could defer it. Could I have thank you very, very much. Thank you. Right, well, without further ado, what I'm going to do next is item number 1. I will leave for the chair of the planning to do. So he will also be doing item 1 in conjunction with, that is pages 1 to 2, the procedure planning, and it will be addressed by the chair of the planning in conjunction with items 5, 6 and 7 on the agenda. Rebecca, have we got any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chair, we've got Councillor Alex Wallace.
Thank you. Anyone else from the floor?
We've got Councillor Quashai, he's on his way, Chair.
Oh, right, thank you. No one else? Thank you. Right, item number 3 on the agenda, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 10th of November 2021 is circulated and to be confirmed as a true record. And they're pages 3 to 10. Are we agreed that the members will just indicate if they want to speak on a particular page, or quite happy to do that, or do you want to go page by page? Or just if councillor's got anything they would like to say?
Move a minute, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much, councillor. That's very kind of you. Right, item number 4 on the agenda, disclosures of members' interests. Have we any disclosures? Can't see any. Thank you. Well, now I would like to hand over to Councillor Gallagher, Chair of the Planning, and he'll conduct the planning business. Thank you, Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to welcome the committee to the planning, also the public, and I understand we're on live stream. And it's just to mention that we are in a COVID-19 safe room where the meeting is being held. Can I remind members to mute when speaking, especially in the debates. Just before we go on to the planning, just to give you a brief idea of the procedures, mainly for speakers today, is that one, the chair will introduce the planning. The planning officer will do a presentation and include any updates on the application. There's going to be some public speaking. As I understand it, they are the only speakers because objectors, local members and applicants can speak. So we've got a member of the public wants to say something against this planning application. The committee will ask questions of the planning officer, and under the rules of debate there'll be a proposer, a seconder and a debate. And after that we shall move into the votes. So just to let people that don't come to planning know the run of play. I'll introduce this application as the application number 21/01978/full, and it's land north of Jubilee and Industrial Estate, Ashington, Northumberland. And with that being said, can I introduce the planning officer, Mr. Will Lang. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so on the screen here we can see the map and aerial overlay of the site. It's to the north of the Jubilee Residential Estate, but to the south of the Jubilee Industrial Estate. The site, although on the photograph does look open, it has a previous consent to be enclosed by a fence and a hardcore servicing. So the servicing and fence are not part of this application, they're part of a previous approval. Description remains as a proposal, but I would bring your attention to paragraph 2.2, where I've said it's enclosed by a metal palisade fence. It's actually currently only enclosed on 3 sides. The side to the rear bordering the properties has not yet been implemented. So I'll just bring you a correction of that. With regards to the report as well, there's a couple of typos, I'm afraid. Paragraph 7.39, where it says, and no further, it is an unfortunate typo and should say "and no further." And in condition 3, where it's referring to no siting of industrial storage within the root protection area of the tree, it should say in no siting of industrial storage rather than siting of. Let's see, the proposal for industrial storage includes the installation of shipping containers. Each of these shipping containers are 6.1 metres long, 2.4 metres wide and 2.9 metres high, a fairly standard industrial size. The site does fall within an employment area of the local plan, so it is identified in the B1, B2, B8, and now the later employment uses to the change to the GPDO. And as per the report, we've recommended a raft of conditions to impose on this, should you be minded to approve. To give you more detail, here is the current site plan. There is, of note, there is a tree in the north-west corner there, north-east corner, that is protected, and the relevant ecology surveys have been submitted and assessed by the ecologist, who has no objection, subject to conditions. These include the installation of a small electrical breeze block kiosk. That's towards the front near the gate, which is automated. Just to quickly run you through some site photographs on site, as you can see the fencing there and the existing hard surfacing. These are both of the front elevations. The area to the left is the adjoining site rather than the actual site. And you clearly see the new entrance and the hard core on the right there. Again, furthermore from the front, we've got the TPO tree on the right and more of the site. Now moving to the boundary fences along the sides, so we see across with that, the nearest dwellings on the right, industrial on the left, the first photo. And I believe we have some videos to show to give a bit more context to the site during Christmas break. Not everyone was able to see them all. So bear with me. I've muted the volume because it was very windy that day and I don't want to subject you to that white noise. But there's some videos here, touch wood. This is the site entrance. That is just standing on the road on Menop Way itself. And that's planning from east to west. This is again on the north side of the site towards the front. It's quite short, this one, unfortunately, because I had to get out of the way of a car. This is towards the side where you can see the street. Let's pan around. So as I trek around the side, you can see here the public right of way and roadway that goes down to the industrial estate, and the side of the fencing here. As we see in the bottom corner here, if I bear with me, you can see the shipping containers installed. Pause, so you can get a good idea of the size and context. They are all going to be dark blue, but we are recommending a condition to keep them as such. And the final video, which is just coming back towards the entrance, then towards the TPO tree itself. Then we can see quickly the breeze block substation. And where the palisades fence adjoins to the next site. Right, that is all our videos and the end of the presentation. So recommended for approval subject to the conditions as per the report submitted in front of you.
Thank you very much, Will. So we've gathered all our updates on your presentation and everything has been covered for the move to the next stage. Well, yeah?
Yes.
Right, that's fine. The next part of the planning process is for public speaking. We've got one person who's indicated to speak, and that'll be a Mr. Peter Down. I've had a chat with him before the meeting started about his presentation, and he would like to be indicated when he's got a minute left of his 5 minutes. If the person who's putting the timer on can let him know. So, Mr. Dow.
Okay, thanks. I'm here today as a nominated spokesperson for the residents. We would hope that all of you here today who are involved in the decision-making process have taken the time to visit the site. The planning applications which got in front of you has actually been in two parts. The first one, we feel, has never been completed. And that is covered, will cover part of it to say that that fencing hadn't been completed under 2.2. But also in 7.8 of the delegation report says that the report states that the hard standing and fencing are subject of an existing permission, and those issues are handled through appropriate enforcement action. So we're worried, why are we actually here today discussing the second part of this planning when the first one hasn't even been dealt with correctly, because that fence still has not been erected. Also, within the delegation report, 7.15, it states that no lighting has been proposed, yet the plans actually show that there is a lamppost proposed with security cameras on it. So, my question is, if you were to present a vehicle for an MOT and it needed some work done, it wouldn't be signed off until such times as that work gets completed. From day one, the residents have had concerns of how this site has been managed, which has led to the enforcement officer being involved on numerous occasions. And this is just a list of some of the issues. The existing trees were cut down. Had it not been for the intervention of residents, the tree which is now subject to a TPO would have also been cut down. Fencing was erected without permission. Horses were brought onto site. An attempt was made to locate the entrance to a different position as that shown on the plan. No protection zone was in place around the protected tree when the groundwork started. A breeze block kiosk was built inside the tree protection zone, which was not on the plans. A trench was dug through the tree protection zone to service the kiosk. An 18-yard skip full of used tyres was brought onto the boundary of the industrial estate and the housing estate. That then was removed and replaced with an empty 18-yard skip and a transport trailer. Large plastic storage containers were brought onto site and are still there. On the 4th of January, 8 containers were brought onto site 8 days before this meeting. The containers that are now on site are forming the boundary between the residents and the site and are placed so that the metal fence cannot be erected in the location as per the plans. If this fence is not erected, it will cause conflict between residents and the applicant. This site will not be manned, so who is going to police this? Residents are already subjected to antisocial behaviour coming from parts of this industrial estate, which the council and the police are aware of. Under human rights, residents are entitled to a peaceful life. This planning application will not give the residents that peaceful life. It seems that the tree is given tree that has been given tree protection status has more rights afforded to it than the residents. Residents have already raised concerns about the potential flooding, and there was photographic evidence was in there. But that has never been addressed to say if this flooding comes back, who is the residents got cause for redress to. The residents recommend that this planning application is refused. If not, the planning application should be put on hold until the previous planning application is dealt with through enforcement, making sure that the fence to the south of the site is erected and the damage to the highway is repaired. You may today make a different decision, which includes conditions. Well, from what I've previously outlined as taking place on this site, the residents have got no faith that any conditions will be followed and enforcement will have no effect.
Thank you very much. Next part of the procedure is members. Councillor Carty.
Yeah, my questions is around enforcing conditions, right? It seems to me that there's been a few conditions not enforced already, but my biggest problem with this one is, how on earth are you going to keep an eye out and enforce that all the containers are blue when every now and then there's going to be a green one or a pink one sneaked in, right? And also the lighting. How are you actually going to enforce this? How is it going to work? Because we're thin on the ground with enforcement officers to start with, and in other places, right, there's been enforcement issues and they haven't been dealt with. So, you know, I mean, thinking of the residents here, right, there's enforcement issues already not being done. You've got conditions here that will need enforcing again. How's it all going to work? How's it going to be enforced? Have we got enough people to deal with it?
Thank you. Who wants to answer that?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I mean, there does seem to be some issues with the fence not being erected from the previous application. My understanding is that our enforcement team are aware of that, but I don't know how far down the line they are with ensuring that that fence goes up. What we can do, if these containers have been put in place now and they are in a position which would not then prevent that fence from being erected, we can enforce that so that they move the containers to a position that is in line with this, the plans that are submitted here, and that would still allow for that fence to be erected. There's clearly further conversations that we've got to have with enforcement around this, which we will do off the back of this meeting, regardless of whether this is approved or not, because we have got a permission there that's not been fully implemented, and we need to understand the reasons why. I think if they're never going to build that, if they don't intend to build that fence at all, we need to know about that in terms of amending that previous permission, so we can bring it back to members and have a further discussion on that. But as it stands, as that permission hasn't been fully complied with in terms of where the fence should be, we can certainly have more discussions with the developer with a push on them actually putting that fence up so it does comply with the condition. I mean, in terms of this colour scheme, I mean, it is in a condition. The applicant is aware of the conditions. They've agreed to the conditions. So, you know, it is up to them to make sure they comply with them. Again, if they don't, it comes back to enforcement. I mean, it is, we understand that it's a bit of a sensitive site. And, you know, a lot of enforcement, as you know, is more reactive than proactive. But we can, when there is a problematic site or one that is presenting some difficulties, or, you know, there is quite a focus around it, we can have that as a reactive site where, proactive site where we can monitor that, you know, on a monthly basis, for example, as well as be reactive to any complaints that come in, to make sure that it is fully compliant with the previous permission. And with this one, that's before us now, if it is approved by members. Thank you, Chair.
Can I bring in Councillor Purvis, please?
Judith, I think you've just about answered most of it, but can we not make, well, like what the gentleman's asking for, get them to do the path and the fence before we kind of let them do anything else? I know they might have already done something.
Yeah, Chair, it's a really difficult one. I think, you know, we've said this before, and we've had these conversations in committee before, that we can't stop these people doing what they do. All we can do is advise them that they shouldn't be doing anything till they have a planning permission in place. And the planning legislation doesn't allow for us to ask them to not grant permission for this, for example, until they've sorted the previous permission out. They can have as many permissions, they can have as many applications under consideration as they like. The planning legislation doesn't allow us to kind of pick and choose which ones we're going to consider, depending on what they have or haven't done with previous approvals. But we can work with them. We can certainly approach them and work with them as best we can to make sure that everything is compliant with the permission that they have got and with the conditions on this permission if it is approved tonight. I mean, certainly, Mr Down, the speaker there, we can take some details from him and have a direct liaison with him so that, you know, he feels a bit more engaged with what's going on. He is a spokesperson for the residents, and that we can, you know, feed back to him more regularly and update him on what we're doing to make sure that these are fully compliant with the permissions that we've got.
Thank you. Councillor Ball.
Thanks, Chair. Just for me, I just want a bit of clarification with around one of the conditions. Operation will hereby approve that storage use will only operate between 7:30 and 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 till 4 Sundays and bank holidays. How is this going to be monitored? Because obviously I know there is other storage sites around that area that are 24 hours, and if it is going to be general public that are using it and hiring the storage facilities, how we're going to monitor the comings and goings, and obviously some kind of guarantee for the public in that area that it's not going to be past them times.
Again, Councillor, this will go down to the enforcement and monitoring team. It's something we'll have to liaise closely with, as we will with the fence and the hardcore. Unfortunately, that enforcement monitoring is our recourse to ensure those conditions are complied with, and that under our legislation, how we're restricted to deal with it. Given that it is, I know there are other similar uses within the estate with longer hours. However, given the close proximity to the residential property, in this case, they feel it was absolutely necessary to control the hours, where if it had been more central in the estate, they may have had longer hours or 24-hour use, which is what we've brought in condition here.
And my other question is, with regards to the enforcement of the issues currently stated, where are we at with them? What's actually happening? Can we have a bit of an update of what's going on with that, with the enforcement side of things? Or things being put right with things like with the TPO and stuff? Or
I have been working with one of the enforcement officers who's aware of the application and has been waiting for the outcome of this application. So, say if members were minded to refuse, then you would deal with both issues rather than just piecemeal. So we have a specific case officer on the site. However, I haven't got a further update other than that. We're waiting for the termination of this application before we'll take further action forwards.
Chair, just to add to that, regardless of the outcome of this one, we'll just pick up the enforcement on the other one regardless, and we'll speak to the enforcement officer about that as well, because they are two separate applications and they need to be dealt with, you know, separately.
Thank you. Are there any other questions to the officers? As Chair, I would like to maybe ask a couple of questions. Other premises where shipping containers are located have been mentioned there previously. Now, I know Ramshide Way is starting to get issues in respect of vehicles attending the shipping containers but not going into the compound. And I'm very mindful that there's a lot of soft area just outside the fencing. Is there any chance of maybe putting some limitations on parking outside the compound? That's my first question.
Chair, we wouldn't be able to control anything outside of the red line boundary. We can only control what's within the red line boundary for this application site. Right. It would be a separate matter that you would probably need to take up with highways to see if they could enforce anything in that respect, but we wouldn't be able to look at it in the context of this application.
The other one was 7.37, which was around 106 agreements. Is the applicant putting any money into a 106 agreement, or is he putting anything on the coastal erosion programme?
Chair, coastal mitigation only applies to residential development, so he's not obliged to submit anything for that, and the development itself doesn't hit any of the thresholds to invite any sort of Section 106 contributions.
And my third and final one is, do we feel as though that we have a robust plan there, that there'll be no double stacking, I know it's mentioned within the plan application, but not only about double stacking, about putting anything on top of these shipping containers, because there will be an eyesore to residents in the estate adjacent to the plan.
I could certainly amend that condition to be more explicit than just double stacking. So currently it prevents the double stacking of shipping containers. I could expand that, if you like, to there should be no double stacking of containers or any other type of storage on top of the existing containers, or the proposed containers.
Yeah, the reason why I brought that up is it became a concern at the other shipping container unit, and better to deal with it early and for the applicant to be fully aware that he can't stack boxes or any containers on top of that. You know, we're tying ourselves into a shipping container, whereas that is the height that is adjacent to the residential properties.
I can certainly, if you like, if you want to give us, that we can certainly add to the wording of that so that it's there should be no double stacking containers or storage of any materials or other boxing on top of the hereby approved containers. I believe I know the site you were concerned about with the double stacking in breach. I can say we did take enforcement action, and although they submitted an application which we refused on that breach, we did successfully win that appeal as well. So we do have good grounds to continue that going forward, and a robust case law would appeal to continue on with that enforcement.
Chair, if on that, if members are minded to approve the application, we could ask seek delegated authority to agree the wording of the finer details of that condition with yourself and Rob Murphy.
I think that's the end of my questions, but do people agree, or does the committee agree with that last statement from the officer to put the condition in? Okay.
Can I just clarify, was that a proposal from yourself, Councillor Parry?
Subject to the condition within the report, also the condition as be said by Judith.
Yeah, so the conditions as listed, 1 to be amended as per the update, and also a further amendment to condition 4, but the wording to be delegated. Yeah? And do we have a seconder? Yes.
Probably from myself, from the chair, is that on this planning application, a lot of things have been done in retrospect, you know, that, and I think that's been the issue on the whole process. For example, the fence was put up in retrospective planning. Then there was, you know, the concerns about flooding. That all seemed to be done beforehand, and before that, trees were taken down. And then, you know, discussions took place afterwards. And I understand the residents' concerns around part 1 of the planning application. If it's not complete, why we're moving on to the second one. And I think that's been explained by the plan officers. But it is a lot of what's happening on this plan application and future planning applications is that enforcement has to be enforceable. And, you know, this isn't just the first application that we've had through Northumberland County Council, where the applicant has kind of went in front of himself, but he's doing the right thing. But the thing is, we've got to take 1, the residents, 2, the committee, and 3, the council, and everybody has to work together. And we'll have to try and to close that gap as such, so that everybody can work together. So that's really my only comment. I don't know if anybody else has got any comments about this. Councillor Reid.
Thanks, Chair. What worries me about all of this is, obviously, the land itself is on an industrial estate, and you can't really stop somebody having an industrial purpose for it. But it's the neighbours, and it just... This whole thing has been actually, if you think about how many times, I remember we put the we put the tree preservation order on that tree, if you remember, and we all wondered at the time what was going on. And it would have been nice if the person who'd done all this had just been straight with everybody in the first place and said, this is what I'm going to do. This is what it'll be fine. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But it seems to be just being done by stealth. And I think that's the thing that makes all of us a bit kind of, you know, obviously we should be welcoming stuff like this. It's, you know, it's providing jobs. It's giving people place to put industrial stuff, but it's right next to a residential place, and the guy should really have more consideration for the neighbours that he's got. I just wish people would be straight with this chair and say, this is what I'm going to do, and instead of, you know, chopping trees down and then us having to say, well, you can't chop that down because it's, you know, it's a rare tree, and then he puts a fence up without asking us. It doesn't bode well for the relationship between him and us and the residents. And I just hope that we can say, I know we've been told we can't make it a condition, but I wish we could just say, well, you can do all that, but we want to see that fence up first. Where's the good faith? Where's the wanting to get on with neighbours? It's, oh, well, I'll do this and they'll make me do it, but the longer I don't have to do it, the less money I've had to spend. It's you know, it's not the way to go on. And if you look back at some of the photographs, the fence is actually starting to tilt. And I wish there would be some way we could say, well, yeah, you're going to have to put that right first as well. But, you know, we do not have the power to get this done the way we want it done. So all we can do is accept this and keep on his back until we get what we want. Sorry, Chair.
Thank you. Never apologise about putting your feelings out there, Councillor. I think one of the things that we can really instruct from this, if we're into debate, is to say that, you know, we need the officers to go back and talk to the applicant ASAP about part one of the previous application. Councillor Corey?
Just a question, and I must have missed what you said, right? Why can't a condition be put on that they get the fences fixed before this go ahead? I know you've said something, but I can't remember what you've said. But why can't we do that?
Yeah, just simply the legislation doesn't allow us to do it. The planning legislation doesn't contain anything that allows us to do that. We would be challenged on it and we would lose.
Any other debate, Councillor Purvis?
Now the fence that hasn't been put up, can we get something around that by it being like a health and safety issue for kids? He says there's a lot of antisocial behaviour and stuff like that. Kids jumping on these kind of stuff that's in the yard, and is it not a danger? You know what kids is like. I used to play around there when I was young, many years ago, by the way, but I did. Is there nothing like that can be done, Judith?
Again, that would be external bodies that would need to step in on that. All we can do is push the matter on the fence and getting that fence put up. You know, there could be other bodies that equally speak to the developer and say, you know, there's a lot of antisocial behaviour going on now. There's this, that, whatever. To basically, you know, trying to push them into doing the fence. But all we can do is push it from the planning angle to say you've got a permission for that fence, and if you're not going to put that up, that needs to be reflected in a variation on your planning permission that we could bring back to committee.
Just on a point of information, you know, I know the area. I had a site visit this morning, and this application is a mirror image to where culprits have bought similar land. They've done everything right, and they have put the fences up and completed the work in a satisfactory way. The one thing that hasn't been mentioned is the recent storms as well. Residents' fences are down. So the whole idea of the completion of the fences would actually fit in and into the area and make his compound secure, but it also will help the residents as well, so they can get access to their property to repair fences. Does anybody else want to say anything more about this?
Thanks, Chair. Just once again, this looks, as you mentioned, like another application where the applicant has already done work on it, and it's just another retrospective plan. And when is it that we're going to take a stand and not keep approving plans that have had work done on them already? It's really annoying, Chair.
Councillor Carr, I can totally agree with you in your frustration. But before I bring in Councillor, I'll get the officer again to...
Again, it comes down to the legislation, doesn't... There's nothing in the legislation that we can go out and stop them from doing it. As frustrating and annoying as it can be, all we can do is advise them that they really shouldn't be doing anything until they've got the planning permission in hand. But any retrospective application, you know, as we've said and we've discussed in committee before, is always treated as if it isn't retrospective. And we consider it as if the containers aren't there. So just because they are there does not give them the green light to a planning permission. It means that they may have to remove them if planning permission is refused.
Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just asking, is the applicant here today? Nobody? No, that shows the contempt for the planning system that the applicant's got. Staging their applications and then not turning up for the answer questions.
Councillor, I would say the applicant did ring me to discuss the meeting. I did explain they could have a right of response, but they felt the issues that were raised were addressed in the officer report, and they didn't want it. And bear in mind, we can't say mark against them for not turning up. It's not a material planning issue. But they did ring me to ask whether they should come, and I said it was within their own decision whether they wanted to. But the applicant did feel that all the issues raised had been addressed in the officer report, so they didn't feel they could add any merit by turning up and just taking time to speak.
Yeah, just on the back of that, I think contempt may be a strong word, because we've had applications here where the applicant hasn't turned up. But, you know, I think it's probably the anecdotal feeling of how the process has worked its way out on this planning application. I can understand why he came up with that one. But a lot of planning applications, the applicant sometimes doesn't turn up. So contempt was maybe a wee bit of a strong word. Thank you. The agenda, which is a vote with the officer's recommendations, and it was proposed by Councillor Parry. Do we go to a vote now? Are you happy with that on the legal side? Yeah. So can we show of hands them that are for this plan application? Those that are against? Those that are abstaining? Sorry, that's two there.
No, there was 5 against. There was 5 against. Can I just have a show of hands for 5? But,
For those against, could we have the vote again?
there was 5. That's 15, so yes. It's carried.
The plan application is being carried. So thank you very much for that. We'll move on to the next stage of the agenda, which is the appeals update, which is agenda 7. It's the report there. We're quite happy to note that report. I don't want to need to talk about it. So we're going to note that report. Thank you very much. We'll just have a quick recess, and the speakers, if you want to leave, tell it yourself. We'll move on to the next section of the LAC.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Should we just start?
Well, just before we do, Councillor Sanderson, it's just a little bit, just I would like to introduce to the leader of Northumberland County Council, Glenn Sanderson, who will be going through the budget report. And I don't know if Richard will be interjecting at a certain time, but I'll just leave you and Glenn to sort out between your good selves. Thank you. Thank you, Glenn.
So
Thank
thank you very much indeed, and thank you, members, for inviting us along tonight. This is a short presentation delivered by myself and by Richard Wearmouth, who is the Deputy Leader, but also the Cabinet Member responsible for money, basically. So it might seem a strange thing to begin this presentation with that slide, which is around COVID. But it's actually done deliberately, because this time last year, when we were doing the same presentation, we had the same issues around COVID, and previously to that, and all last year. So the key message I want to give tonight is that we are, and I know all of you members feel exactly the same, we are hugely proud of all parts of our county council for continuing to deliver the frontline services, whether it's fire and rescue, whether it's local services, whether it's roads. All of the frontline services have done us proud. And this is not just me saying this. I know I'm speaking on behalf of each and every one of you. So the point about this slide is to say that whilst we haven't finished the consultation yet, we've still got till the 21st of January to carry out our public consultation and final discussions. It is very much my wish that unless something untoward happens, there will be no cuts in frontline services this coming financial year. And I want the staff here to see understand that on the top table, because I know these staff and they are fantastic and they serve us proud. So that is not just from me saying it, I think it's on behalf of each and every one of you to say thank you for that. And if we can manage it, and hoping that we can, there will be no cuts to those services. So the second slide is around COVID and inequalities. And one thing we found during COVID is that it has affected those people who are less fortunate than some more than others. It is very much the second strand of this this coming budget to pay careful attention to inequalities throughout the county. We know there are pockets everywhere where some people are less well off than others, and that can be around fuel poverty, child poverty, food poverty, but it's around the whole area of inequalities. And we have a dedicated team of professionals working across the piece on this. But I think it's time, and I'm absolutely sure that you'll support me on this, it's time we actually turned the political spotlight a bit more onto that work and say, how can we as a county council help with this? So as a first step, we will be holding a partnership summit around inequalities on March the 4th, which will bring together all the professionals that are working in this field, along with, I hope, cross-party representation, to see what we can do this coming year and beyond to play more of an active political role in doing the best we can around this important agenda. Okay.
Thanks, Glenn. So the next slide here is covering the state of the economy and in the county in terms of the economic recovery that we're going through post-COVID. And we're fortunate this time around, when we have economic shocks in the North East, and Northumberland is not alien to this in the past, we tend to suffer more and for longer. So there are usually more people out of work, and the unemployment rate and the lack of employment stays stubbornly higher, whilst other parts of the country do better than ourselves. Today, we're looking at numbers, and these slides finish unfortunately in June, and the position's much better than that. But what we've found through the economic shock of COVID, whether it's been with furlough or business support mechanisms that were put in place, we haven't seen that same problem. And to give you the up-to-date numbers in terms of unemployment rates, the Northumberland's latest unemployment rate is at 4.1%. If you compare that to the North of Tyne Combined Authority area, they have a rate of 4.8%, and in the North East it's at 5.3%. England, on average, is at 4.7%. So we're bucking the trend in Northumberland, and you can speculate as to what the reasons for that might be. Maybe there's a change in demographic. Maybe we've been particularly fortunate that from the economic uplift of staycations or whatever else, we seem to have fared better this time round than normal. There are issues, though, when you drill into the detail. And so unemployment in 18 to 24-year-olds is still quite stubbornly high in the county at 7.4%. And we're looking at how we can tackle that. And I would say that there are pockets where there are particular problems in that regard. So I think Councillor Nesbitt's here, and Croft Ward is one where we have particular issues. And we need to home in on those and understand how we can disrupt that and change it. The next slide there shows a little bit about the state of income in terms of wages. This data comes from the Office of National Statistics. It always fluctuates in this way. You find, regardless of it's the same across all countries. But the trend is upwards in terms of wages in the county, and that is to be welcomed, but we mustn't rest on laurels, and we must realise that actually that brings with it a set of problems as well. So anyone who was either fascinated enough or dull enough to be watching the Cabinet this week on the live stream or read the papers on it would have noted that we've taken some action to make sure that we're paying the real living wage for care workers, for example, in the county, because what's happened as the economy has come out of hibernation post-lockdown and post-furlough is that people have found that they're actually, they've got some upwardly mobile potential in terms of jobs, in terms of salaries, whether it's going into the hospitality industry, working for the likes of Amazon or so on, where you can get some of these flexible hours that often are particularly attractive to people working in the care sector. So we've got that competition, as it were, but nonetheless, paying a real living wage is the right thing to do anyway, and I would hope that everyone across the council, across party and non, would be supportive in that. And then the next slide is yours, Glenn.
Yes, thank you. So at the same time as the budget, we will be producing the new corporate plan. This is basically setting out the main aims and vision for the next period from the administration. It'll be around making sure that we talk and listen to residents and partners and key organisations, that we understand the wants and needs of people, and do our very best to meet those, and to also ensure that our climate change agenda and the action plan that we have, we will continue to work on that. We are already rolling out a number of climate change champion areas in the county, and there'll be an announcement in the budget about how we're going to help that particular area as well. So there's 48 key priorities, which I'm glad to say I'm not going to bore you with tonight. I won't bore you with any of them, other than to say the two key aims of the next year and onwards is to positively motivate new business, and that means working really closely with our economic regeneration team and businesses like British Bolt and others, Port of Blyth, to support existing businesses, and that's around not introducing car parking charges in town centres, as an example, and then tackling health inequalities and inequalities throughout our communities. And those are the three things that we will want to help those people who need our help the most.
So, underpinning our budget, of course, is all of the various income streams that come into the council, and some members here are new, some will know this of old. That it isn't simply the case that all of the money that comes in to pay for council services comes from council tax. There's lots of places that we derive our funds from. All councils across the country are operating in a time of financial uncertainty. We've got pressures in terms of demographics, and particularly more falling to us in terms of responsibility and coverage on social care as people live further into old age than they have been, and with more needs and more complex needs. We've got pressures on pay, as I mentioned earlier, with regard to, for example, for adult social care, but there are others. And we've got price inflation coming out of COVID. We've had a lot of disruption of supply chain. We've seen gas and electric and other fuel prices go up, and we've seen materials prices go up as well. So a lot of our building projects, and we've got quite a large capital programme, they're seeing upwards pressure on cost. And as well, COVID has had its own impact on our expenditure and our income. So during the last year, again, if you were watching or reading any of the cabinet papers, you might have seen the latest financial report, which shows that we've got a lot more houses, a lot more people paying council tax in the county. I don't know whether that's entirely just new houses or people deciding that their second house, that living in Jesmond is now their first house and they'd rather live in Northumberland. Who knows? There might be a bit of that. But in the opposite direction, so we've had an income increase of four or so £1 million there, but we've taken a hit in terms of the lack of business rates coming in, because we see some of the business rates that are collected by government come to us through business rates retention. Just going through, and then finally, there's a wider picture that will emerge, no doubt, over the coming years as to how we pay for everything that we did to put the economy into that intensive period of care whilst we got through the worst of the pandemic, and that money will have to be paid back, and there will be pressures, I'm sure. The government, as everyone I'm sure is aware, goes through various reviews and consultations of its own, the same as we're doing with our budget. And in the autumn of last year, they confirmed that they hoped to have a 3-year settlement between the 22 budget and the 25 budgets. That would give us a bit more time to sort of plan and in terms of certainty of what was coming into our coffers. And they confirmed at that stage that there would be a limit on council tax rises of 2% unless you had a referendum, and 1% on adult social care per annum over the next 3 years. What came out of that was what's called the local government settlement. So every year, just before Christmas, all the 151 officers and finance officers from councils look forward to what the Chancellor's bringing them for Christmas. And this time around, we got a 1-year settlement. Ultimately, government decided there was too much uncertainty as to provide a 3-year settlement, which was frustrating but understandable. We saw a 6.9% increase in our core spend, so we did get a considerable uplift to cover some of those pressures, and we were allowed under the law to put up council tax by up to 2% and adult social care precept up by 1% without a referendum, and so you'll see our details on that in due course.
Investing in the future across the county means the climate change action plan, which I mentioned before, is really important. And I'm grateful to all members for playing their part in moving this agenda kind of to the top of everything we do, because we have to. And the Climate Change Action Plan includes many different parts to it, huge, big projects, and then home insulation, and then down to a free tree for every household that wants one. That last one is doing really well, and it was fully subscribed last year, and we're doing the same again this year. Attracting the high quality jobs. It's not just jobs, it's high quality jobs to the Gigafactory and the Port of Blyth, and all of the work that's going on around there, which is fantastic. And the people that are working there are really brilliant in everything they're doing. The Borderlands Place programme will provide money for more rural areas. So we'll see the new whisky distillery and visitor centre at Wooler, a new theatre, a complex in Berwick, town deals, and also, of course, the Energising Blyth programme and levelling up funding, which is sitting at around £4.8 billion. And we must make sure that we bid into that and continue to fund places like Ashington and other smaller places like Choppington, for example, with those funds to help that area grow and level up. And by levelling up, I mean that anyone who grows up in Blyth should have the same opportunity as someone that grows up in Ponteland. Those life opportunities are crucial to make sure that everyone has the same opportunity. And I think these good jobs that are coming will be one part of that jigsaw, but to make sure skills training that are appropriate to everyone are also improved and increased is really important too. The Northumberland line, and I acknowledge the work that the previous administration did on this. We are building on that, and I think that we can usefully look forward to finally seeing government crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and we will get this up and running in the next 2 and a bit years. We need to secure more funding for the major roads infrastructure. We know about the A1. The Blythe Relief Road is very important. That is still sitting there and will progress, I'm sure. And of course, the Moor Farm roundabout, we had a meeting this afternoon, Wojciech and I, with what were Highways England, but are now called Highways something, National Highways. And I can say that they are doing feasibility work on Moor Farm roundabout now, and I just hope that following the meeting we had today, where we explained how vitally important it was to get this junction sorted out, that we will see that move up in the programme of work. Extra care housing, really important, we know that. Delivering the new school builds in Berwick and Seaton Valley and in Amble. Our parks and open spaces proved really useful in the COVID months and years. They provided that opportunity to be closer to peace and quiet, to be closer to nature, to the natural environment. So the country parks and cycleways and walkways are going to receive extra funding in the budget, which we will announce in a few weeks' time. And so will public conveniences as well. And we will continue to deliver maintenance and investment in our roads and the cycle paths. We know that in the Cabinet meeting this week, we've just announced more money for a new cycleway in Blyth. Okay, Richard.
Thank you, Glenn. So the next slide covers spend and savings. As per previous budgets, we've seen a need to make savings or to find additional money. This budget's no different. We've got a savings requirement of 9.7 million identified to balance the budget this time around, and provisional savings of 28 million, which have been calculated to be necessary for the following 2 financial years of the 4-year financial term or financial plan. I'll talk a bit about this now, which is to say that the approach to finding these, spend and savings is as follows. So reviewing services in order to keep frontline service reductions to a minimum. In fact, I think that as things stand in the draft budget, there are no frontline services that will be impacted at all. As Glenn said in the introduction. Ensuring that services and financial planning is aligned to the corporate plan. So, sometimes as you go forward, you've set out your plan. You must make sure that actually what you're doing reflects what it is that you are wanting to deliver and what you've said that you're going to deliver. Maintaining a strong financial position in terms of sufficient reserves. This council certainly doesn't have any issue at all with reserves. We have plentiful reserves, and we're going to make sure that we're using them to the best effect. Maximising income generation whilst managing risk at the same time. Ensuring that the council demonstrates value for money in the delivery of its priorities. Often people get bogged down in budgets and so on and saying, that you've got to spend loads of money. Well, spending loads of money isn't necessarily a hallmark of success. In fact, sometimes it can be completely the opposite. Investing to save on one-off resources that can save money in the future, and that's really one thing that myself and Jan Willis, the finance officer, are really keen to do now, because we've gone through these iterations of the budget over a number of times where I've sat within the cabinet, and we must start transforming the way that this council does business. We've skirted around the edges a little bit probably in previous years, and we can and we must do more. So the last bit from me on here is a graph showing roughly where some of those spending savings by portfolio will be provided. And I want to tackle the word savings here, actually, because whilst you were all talking through your planning application thing, I just went back and had a look at actually what it is that we're talking about when we're talking about savings. And it's very diverse in terms of what that word actually means. It's not really a very good word to have in this presentation, if I'm critical of my own presentation. So when I look at, for example, there's 1.96 million there in local services, well, it doesn't mean that we're spending less on filling in potholes or anything like that. Actually, the bulk of that green wedge of pie in that pie chart is coming from electricity sales, where there's been an uplift, and so the price of electricity has gone up. We're getting paid more for our electricity because we're selling waste at a higher price to the energy from waste plant. And when you look at some of the bits on children's services, for example, that's about housing, finally getting housing built in this county so that we don't have to send kids out of county and spend money in other authorities in order to house children. And in terms of healthy lives, there, which is a relatively small bit of the package there, it's about savings and in terms of their approach that Active Northumberland have said that they're comfortable in delivering over the course of the plan, etc., etc. So I don't want people to look at this and go away and say, that these represent cuts in anything in terms of services, because they don't. Frontline services are protected. Where we're making efficiencies, that I think is to be applauded by the staff and the senior management who've really drilled into what we need to do as a business, where we've got surplus places that we haven't been able to fill, for example, in terms of staff, and actually we've managed and performed as well as is necessary and indeed thrived. Those are the sorts of things that have made up this budget. Next slide.
Good. Okay, so that's it. We will be making the announcements of the detail in a couple of weeks' time. We want to wait until the public consultation is over, which is going to be the 21st of January. We've had a very good response to that again. There was a good question and answer last night that was picked up by quite a lot of people. So we want to find out from the public where they feel that we should be spending more, spending less, doing better, and so on. So we'll pull all of that together, and then we will come forward with our budget at the end of January, early February. There will be an option then to have scrutiny meetings and so on, and then it'll come to full council. And we know we like full council, so it'll come to full council on the 23rd of February, but it'll be over in half an hour. We can all go to the sun and have a drink afterwards. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thank you, Councillor Sanderson, for both you and Richard's in-depth report. But I wonder if it's possible, perhaps, if you could share the reports that you might be creating from the residents about their feedback and how they feel about the budget, and and how things are going and what they would like to see improved or they could possibly do without. I don't think there's anything they could do without. Without further ado, I wonder if any councillor has any questions for Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Wearmouth. Thank you. I've got Councillor Nisbet and then Councillor Ball initially, and then Councillor Simpson. Thank you. I'll just leave it. Sorry, Kath. I'll just leave it between you and Richard. See who's going to answer it, Glenn, if you don't mind. Thank you. Right, Councillor Nisbet.
A couple of questions, really. How far and wide is the consultation going? Is it put in the public eye, or is it online, or is it wherever it is? Can you answer that one? And the second one is regarding the Croft Road, the unemployment. The thing we need to tackle there is landlords. Landlords are buying up from down south a lot of the properties, so anybody's coming from far and wide to live in this area. We used to know exactly who your neighbour was. We don't know that now. We're getting more and more HMOs into the area, so that's where unemployment is very high. Until we can start and tackle that, it's no good tackling unemployment because it'll always be there. That's where we need to start. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I can tell you that the public consultation, well, I'm pretty sure it is haveyoursay@northumberland.gov.uk, but it's on the website, so if you go on the County Council website, you'll find it. I think the last time I heard it was certainly well over 200 people had responded. I think it might be quite a bit more than that now. On the question of employment, it is a fact that if you go to the Port of Blyth and see everything that's happening there, and then take a short walk to the centre of Blyth and see what you see there, there is a big difference, Kath. And what we must do is to make sure that we spread that learning, we spread that expertise and opportunity as much as we can. You really, to do that, and I'm not an economist, but my understanding is to do that, you have to provide those good jobs. You have to provide the motivation, and you have to provide the stimulus for people to want to get on. And at the moment, some people have just parked up or given up, not because they don't see a future. And that is the thing we have to be. I'll just say one quick thing, if I may. I was a governor for a long time on a small first school in a former mining village, and I remember very well going to a pantomime and concert at Christmas and seeing this young child, an absolute star, and asking the head teacher, this child go far? She said, well, I don't think he will, because he doesn't get. He has to be on school meals. He doesn't take books home, and if he does, his parents don't read to him. And he's got a brother who's in trouble, and so it's about aspiration. It's about getting life chances better to everyone. And I know, as I said right at the beginning, that you all feel the same as I do, that we have to do the best we can, and that doesn't mean just throwing money at it. It means giving, that opportunity for real jobs. I'm sorry to go on a bit. I hope that answers the question, Kath.
Not really, Glenn. The problem I've got is, I'll go back to it. I've bantered on about this for years now, and it's about private landlords, especially around the Cuppen Quay area. Until we can solve that problem with private landlords, we can't solve the problem of unemployment. I can appreciate what you're saying, and I totally agree with you, the aspiration is there. Mine is commitment. Mine is about where the heart lies, in my ward, which I represent, and I represent wholeheartedly, and I respect a lot of people around there. But until we can challenge these landlords, i.e. licensing the landlords, will never ever get rid of a problem there, which I've dealt with for about nearly 20 years now. That's one thing. And the other thing was about the website, it being on the website. There's quite a lot of people out there don't use computers, And this is what another thing I keep going on about is we need to get to the heart of the people, asking them personally what they think. It's no good just saying you've gone through over 200 people on the website. That's fair enough. But it's the other people we need to reach. We need to reach them in person. Thanks.
Just before I bring Richard on the housing point, we do a lot of social media, and there's an awful lot of people following that on social media, but I hear what you say, and I think the problem we've got really is that we can't do public meetings at the moment, Kath. If we could, then I would be very keen to go to some of the towns and have a public meeting and hear what people have to say. And that's something that we could maybe look at, Madam Chairman, hopefully if this is all over this time next year, and we can do it that way.
So thanks, Councillor Nisbet. I think that we've touched on these issues around landlords quite a few times in the in the various Blyth meetings that we have, and I agree with you. I think that it's something that we need to be paying attention to. There is, I think, some moves to start that as part of the work with the Blyth Town deal and the board and the Blyth Forum. So let's try and pick that up there. In terms of the consultation bit, budget consultations are a bit dry, regardless of however you do them, but I do agree that if we can find a way to engage, all the better. I think that I remember being in that big tent that we put up in the market square in Blyth, and we had 2,000 people in, and I genuinely can't wait to be able to do that sort of stuff again, and I really can't wait for the end of these damned restrictions. And that we must find a safe way to do it, but we must start doing it again soon, because it was a fantastic event and it really did spark a lot of energy into energising Blyth. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Glenn. Is that you all right now, Eileen? Thank you. Right, Caroline, you're next.
Thanks, Chair. So savings, efficiencies, cuts, whatever you want to call them, a lot of the services are already struggling and are more of a reactive service than a proactive service. So I know I've mentioned it before in full council about the drains. These do add to things like flooding. So you might be saying that we're not losing any frontline services, but we're already struggling and the staff are already under pressure and they're doing an amazing job. But we really need more staff, more money, because if you speak to the people in my ward and everybody else's ward that's here, the services at the minute, we're seeing flooding on a regular basis because the drains aren't being maintained. And again, it's a reactive service. We're seeing traffic lights out, and unless a member of the public or one of us reports it, it's not on a regular schedule. So for all you're saying that we are not facing any cuts in services, the reality of it is prices are going up, costs are going up, so ultimately there is going to be some kind of cut somewhere along the line, or efficiency, or whatever you want to call it. So with regards to the questions in the public consultation, I've had a number of people from my ward mention they've submitted questions online during the Facebook lives and not had an answer to them. Will they be getting any kind of direct reply to that? And can I get your guarantee about this car parking in Ashington? When the train line opens, there will not now, not ever, be car parking introduced in Ashington Central, at the town centre, or anywhere near that train station. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caroline. Glenn, before I let you speak, could I just ask, with the efficiencies, may I ask if you're going to do these wonderful efficiencies and you're not going to reduce any frontline services, etc. But what concerns me, will there be staff who perhaps leaves? Would they be replaced? Is this another way that you're going to, have savings? And I just would like that question asked, because it's imperative that we keep all of our good staff that works at Northumberland County Council, and they're under extreme pressure to date. And they're doubling up, doing various jobs, and I would hate to think that that's an area that you'll be looking at, because we cannot afford to lose any more absolutely fantastic staff that really works jolly hard in our community, whether they are very highly paid officers, and down to the lads that actually go out and empty bins. And I'm not being derogatory in any sense, but that's a worry of mine. But also getting back to Caroline's point, and that is why, because I watched that last night and there was a lot of questions that weren't answered, and that's why I wondered if we could actually get a report back of all the questions that was actually put to you in Glen last night, Richard, so we could see an answer, as Caroline rightly says, the residents who have contacted us to say, we wanted, further clarification. Sorry to rant on.
No,
It
wasn't a rant at all, Chair. Thank you very much. In terms of a few bits there, there's no compulsory redundancies or anything like that, and there's no cuts in services. That's if you want to take away two things from tonight. Those are two straightforward things. When it comes to filling posts, there may be a few posts, and it would be a very small number, where we've coped without them for a long time and the services have decided that they're not necessary. That's a call for those service directors, and I would back them in making those decisions if that's what they've just determined. When it comes to car parking, in Ashington, just to comment on that, there's no plan at all to introduce fees to charge. What I would just say to Councillor Ball is this, that car parks around stations are really complicated things, having got some in Morpeth, and we find all sorts of odd things go on with them. I had one chap who, in my ward, who parked like 15 cars in a free council car park and basically used it as a car lot. So sometimes you've got to work out ways to regulate them in order to make sure that they do what they're supposed to be doing for the residents. And you'll come across that and hopefully it's totally seamless and smooth and straightforward. But that was the reason for some of that discussion in the Cabinet way back when. And when it comes to some of the other bits on, I'm pretty sure that we've bought additional gully machines, and certainly we've invested in other machinery to do more, and I'm going to defer to Glenn here because it's his area of significant expertise, and I'm going to start to waffle about hot boxes or whatever they're called, but I'll let Glenn cover that bit.
I think the issue around gully emptiers, and I'll look at Michael here, but I think if you want to just take that one, could you make? And then on the fleet generally, we are spending millions of pounds this year on new fleet, and some of that will be around making sure we can do potholes, not just splodges, but actually patching, which is much better and lasts a lot longer. But could you take the point on the gully emptier, please, Mick?
Yeah, we're expecting 4 new gully emptiers. They're higher specification ones, are more powerful. They can do a lot more in a day, and they can clear a lot more of debris out. We've also got this in my update, but we've also got an additional gully emptier being deployed next week, and that's targeting the whole road section using a system called Carbon Tech we have in place. So it keeps a very good a record of what's been done, and even to the depth of silt that's been taken out. The intention was for that to start in the Ashington wards and then work its way down to the other wards across the southeast area.
Just one more bit as well before I forget the Chair's question regarding answering feedback on Facebook. I'm sure that the comms team will be catching that, and I'll flag it tomorrow to make sure that there's no question that goes unanswered there.
That's lovely. Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Mick, for their comments. Liz, I've got Liz next, then Eileen, Brian, and I'll bring you back in, Caroline. Liz?
Thanks, Lynn. Just a quick question to both Glenn and Richard. What pressures will the increase in utility bills put on the budget? Will it make a big increase or...?
Hi. Right, okay, so it's not as sizable as it would be. Your administration, our administration, and the current administration, that's succeeded the last one, have put a fair amount in terms of electricity generation, in terms of ground source heat pumps, solar panels, and all these kind of things. So to some extent, that's insulated us a bit. It hasn't totally, but in the proportion of the £800 million budget that we have every year that you'll be familiar with, it isn't a huge sum. It does put pressure on, but doesn't put monumental amounts of pressure on. we are aware, and I think the leader has written to government to try and get additional support for schools and so on. You know, and hopefully we can achieve that in some way, shape or form. But it's not substantial, is the answer.
All right. Thanks for that, Richard.
Are you happy with that, Liz? Yes. Thank you. Right now, I'll bring Eileen in.
Yeah, hi Glenn, Richard. I'm pleased to say that you're going to keep the town centre parking free, right? Because that will bring business back into the town centre, hopefully. I think there's a lot more than just free car parking got to be done for that anyway. And I'm actually quite pleased that you're going to bring extra funding in for green spaces. However, I want to know how you're going to maximise your income to actually give these extra funding to the green space areas. I'm hoping, and I want you to confirm with me, that you're not going to put car parking charges on the beach car parking that we fought against a long time ago, as you know, because a lot of people in the areas that I work with, it's the only place where they can go and get fresh air free for their children. They don't have the money. I want you to ensure to me that you're going to keep all the car parks free in these green space areas or these beach areas that are already free now. If you do that, and I want to know how you're going to get the income, where you're going to get the income from to make the green space areas better.
Okay, as things stand, because I'm not going to commit to 3 years ahead, but at the moment there are no plans, Eileen, to introduce car parking charges, and I don't think I'd want to take you and Jeff Reid and others on that one. I mean, it does raise a sizable amount of income, that beach car park. We know that a lot of people come from outside, they're tourists, they're not locals, so why shouldn't they pay? But I understand that it's an important place for local people to enjoy walking and so on. So therefore, there are no plans to introduce car parking charges there. And in fact, some of that play equipment down there needs to be dealt and sorted out. And I think, if I'm right in saying, there might be a small announcement about that in terms of this extra money that we're finding for our country parks and parks. Now, we have enough money to be able to invest in certain areas. For us, there are some key areas, and it basically boils down to those 3 points that I raised before, which is around supporting industry, encouraging new, and looking after people. And looking after people means a better place for people to live in. I think any of you that have been around the country this last summer will agree that Northumberland is in very good shape. It's looked after really well. I think the grass is cut well, the litter is picked up well, the roads are looked after, bins are emptied, all down to these guys and all the men and women that work in those areas. So what I would say is that if we decide that we want to find some money to invest in country parks and play equipment, that's what we're going to do. Because we have some surplus that we can invest, and it's those areas that we feel are important that I kind of laid out before. So it won't be at the expense of introducing car parking charges, and it won't be at the expense of making people redundant. It's some money that we want to invest in because we think it's the right thing to do. And we will also be investing more in public convenience as well, because we think that's the right thing to do. In this country, it's very difficult sometimes to find a public toilet, and it shouldn't be like that. And if you've got kids or if you're older, you shouldn't have to get embarrassed and go to a shop and say, can I please use? It shouldn't be like that. Public toilets should be as important and easy and a part of the town centre as street lights. So it's very important that we look at these things, and we'll find the money to do it. It may not be huge, millions and millions, but we'll make that investment. We'll be announcing that at the end of the month. So no, I'm not going to take you and Jeff and others on again. No, not going to do that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Eileen, are you quite happy with that response? Thank you. Right, I've got Brian. Would you like to come in, Brian?
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentation. The reality is this is a new budget, and it's cost cutting. And I welcome a little bit of what you say, but we are the southeast part of Northumberland, And I know some people are talking about Blyth and other people are talking about Ashington. But we want to look at this as a block. And, you know, all the things that Kath had said about the landlords isn't specifically to Blyth. So I would like to think that there was a policy pulled forward for where the population is of having to deal with absent landlords. So that's something, rather than look at it individually or ward issued, you can maybe use that as a stepping stone to make that policy happen. But we've all got the problems, whether it's Cramlington, Bedlington, Blyth, Ashington, Newbigin. So that's something to look at as well. So the reality is I welcome the idea of no cuts to local services. These guys on local services have done a tremendous job. They have tried their utmost to do the best they can possibly do. But I want to ask an anecdotal question. If it wasn't for the support of the local parish and town councils, where would them services be in Crampton, Ashington, Newbigin, Bedlington? Sorry, not so much Bedlington, but Blyth. So the reality is there's an element of support coming from local people and a budget coming in extra to support limited services. Now I look at the manpower, and I can only speak about Ashington because I don't know about Blyth and where that comes from. The manpower in Ashington is 12. And Ashington Town Council probably support about 6 of them. So they're the continuous staff that we've got. But sometimes the staff that are under the Northumberland County Council banner can be disappeared and taken elsewhere, which means the services in Ashington sometimes drop even further. So that's a massive concern to me. I welcome the idea that you're talking around parks and open spaces. We all welcome that. In the southeast part of Northumberland, we cherish those open spaces because there aren't many. And the fact that toilets, you know, the whole idea is I'm trying to understand, are you going to refurb the ones that are there? Are you going to put additional ones there? Are you going to look after the tourists further up the coast? And I would like to think that, you know, the toilets at Northumberland County Council are responsible for, in all the towns, are refurbed and looked after and maintained with a service plan to go with it. In Ashington, you mentioned something about the fleet. You know, yeah, I know you're very protective of your fleet, and you look at it Northumberland wide. I've just asked the area manager today, or yesterday, was around. I've never seen a road sweeper in Ashington. Never seen one for ages. And the reality is, one has got both of them are broken down, basically. So where's the replacements? Where's the hire? Where's the help to keep the streets clean? Now understand, Ashington Town Council put £220,000 to support the schemes that are happening in Ashington. There's a letdown for it. It's nobody's fault. It's not Ray Whelans and his team's fault. It's just the machinery isn't there. So the supply isn't there one bit. And one thing that really gets me is Councillor Ball and myself, with your kind...
Brian, I'm terribly sorry,
No,
but I know, but sorry.
No, there was a clear point.
Yes,
Ashington
but Brian,
is struggling,
it's already
mate.
been discussed, and I'm terribly sorry.
No, it's about a visit that we're never going to report back from.
But Brian, thank you very much. We do appreciate, yes, and perhaps Councillor Sanderson can, advise that, but that's already been spoken about, and I hope it's been addressed. But, in Ashington, I mean, so it's, we're not trying to get down to specifics this evening. It's just about the budget. We can bring it back and discuss it further at another meeting. Thank you. Sanderson, would you like to use, please?
Well, I would just say to Brian that I will be, once I can walk properly, I will be more than happy to meet you both in Ashington, probably with John Riddle, and the officer. But if we can leave that just for another month or two, and then I'm more than happy to do that. On the point about working between the town town and parish and county council is concerned, I think Ashington should feel very proud of what they've done, and I think all those partnerships should feel very proud of what they've done. If they hit hiccups, there should be a mechanism for you to be able to discuss that and resolve it. I don't know enough about that, whether there is or not, but if there isn't, then there needs to be. But I think what I said before 10 minutes ago, that the county looks really good. And it's down to the joint working, Brian. Yes, of course it is. And I appreciate it, and I'm sure people in Ashington appreciate it. If there are problems, we need to sort them out. I don't know whether, Mick, you're able to cast any light on the road sweeper side, are you?
Yeah, I'm sure, Councillor. Yeah, we obviously send a weekly report into Ashington Town Council for the manning levels and the equipment levels. That report has shown us sweeper issues, with parts issues we kind of get because parts out of the country and it's just the supply chains. I have made inquiries and we're waiting for hire sweepers to arrive on the pedestrian sweepers. We have new sweepers, which the replacement of the old Haycos are due, according to Fleet, by the end of the month or shortly into February. So they'll be replaced. We know there's been issues with the small sweepers, and that's not just a one-off issue. We have had some problems with them. But on the man levels, we do have the equipment in there. The report shows where all 12 employees within Ashington Town Council and the core service are allocated to. And that's sent in now on a weekly report to Ashington Town Council for scrutiny. I'll certainly keep you updated on the small sweepers.
Thank you. Brian, are you happy with that at this present moment?
Well, thank you very much for that update, and I know that we're talking about the budget, so I'm sure there's some searching questions to go to.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian, for that. I do appreciate it. Right. Caroline, would you like to come back in?
Yeah, it's just another quick question. With regards, obviously, the green agenda is a massive issue. Planting trees is not going to save the planet. We need to be looking at the big businesses, because it's pointless. Everybody in Northumberland can plant a tree and one factory can ruin that by polluting our rivers, our land and the air that we breathe. So what are the council going to do? Because obviously this is a massive issue. We're seeing more and more planning applications for big developments in Northumberland. What are we going to do, and where are we going to push and lobby to make sure that the green agenda goes right the way through and it's not just passed to the residents to make a difference, but actually the big businesses as well? Thank you.
It is. The free tree offer was designed to make everyone feel part of climate change and doing their bit. So even if they don't have somewhere to plant the tree, they could go to a park and plant it, or in a part of the garden, or even in a window box, because we try to fit shrubs as well into this. So that is purely to say to people, we're in this together, and this is what you can do. The bigger picture stuff is huge, and what is going to happen in the next month or two is an update on our climate change action plan, what we've done, what we're doing and what we're going to do. And I've asked that report should go to Cabinet, but it should also go to Council and the local area councils as well, so that we can encourage our small but brilliant team who work on that area, and they can explain where they're at with some of the really big stuff, and that's around EV chargers, around changing to electric vehicles where that's possible, the solar port, heat exchange pumps, and home insulation. There's lots, Caroline, honestly, and it's timely that we get a paper. And let the officers who are dealing with this take questions and explain where they're at and what more we can all do. But the free tree offer was just that little element to say, come on, would you like to be part of this? Because a tree can make a difference, and people have enjoyed that and they've bought into it, and I'm encouraged by that.
Pat, just quickly come back. I've still got people in my ward who are emptying the bins into bin bags and waiting for them to be collected. They can't recycle. We're still on trials for glass recycling when neighbouring councils have been doing it for a long time. We really need to be catching up on this.
Okay. There is an environment bill coming from government that will explain what offers are available to local government to increase and improve their recycling rate. One way that we can do that is by continuing our glass pilot, which is which we've done. We've rolled it out into more homes. We're also very keen to do a food waste pilot, and that is within our budget for this coming year. If we can work up a scheme to do that, because food waste is hugely important, as you know. The particular bits around parts of Ashington where there is no opportunity to recycle, I know that our officers are looking at that, and you're dead right. That is an area that needs to be sorted out, and I'm sure it will be. I mean, if you go to France or go abroad, every time you go into a shopping mall, you'll find a big machine that takes bottles and gives you some tokens back that you spend in the shop. We don't have anything like that here. We don't have any glass deposit, plastic deposit schemes. We need to have loads more, and that will happen. But it's up to us as the county council to do everything we can. And I think if we explain to you, our officers explain to you where we're at and what we want to do and what we're going to do, I think it'll be a good idea. So that should happen in the next couple of months.
If I can just add to that, Councillor Ball, I think that it's worth noting that the progress that's been made by the County Council in terms of its drive towards net zero, and I'm confident that we'll over-deliver when it comes to targeting 2030 of our own carbon footprint. In terms of businesses, and when you look at the fall in terms of CO2 output from this county, I think that we're streets ahead of every other local authority in the whole country. I think something like an 89 or 90% reduction, and probably a huge amount of that, to be fair, has come from the biomass conversion of what was a coal-fired power station at Linemouth. It's come from the wind farms and other renewable facilities that have been installed across the county. But what will be really interesting in the coming years, of course, is the work the British Vault are doing in terms of their footprint they need to make sure that as much or all of their output is carbon neutral, because it's a really critical part of their delivery of their product. And the same will go for others as well. The leader, myself and the Cabinet visited Port of Blyth the other day. A great project at Windbourne Quay is at the Bates Terminal, which is looking to be as close to as possible net zero carbon in terms of the actual construction, which is an incredible thing really to think that we can achieve that now, because the construction industry is a huge part of that. That's something that we're replicating in our own build programme, and Sue Aviston will wax lyrical about just how much they're nailing to the floor carbon in terms of the build process for our new schools and so on. And then I saw, and I've just been added to the working group for this stream of work, and I was really fascinated, and I hope that it gets to be shared somehow, the work that's been done by Simpson's Malt up in Berwick, where they've literally analysed every part, not just of their own process on site and putting in a biomass boiler and saying, oh, well, we've done our bit, but looking at all of the fertilisers, stuff that goes on downstream, where they get their raw materials from, and how they ship it out, and so on. There's some amazing stuff going on in the county, and the team led by Matt Baker, and a huge amount being done by the leader himself. That's the leadership is there, and we are delivering on that, and we need to shout out about it a lot more. And I hope that maybe you could see some of that at local area councils in due course, and invite the team to come and tell you what it is that they're doing, because it is groundbreaking stuff in some cases.
Thank you, Richard. Mark, I've got you, and then I've got Jeff.
Hi, can I just ask about, I'm sure it was £1 million saving in adult wellbeing. Is that right? Is that what it said? I can't see what colour it is. I'm not that. Anyway, whatever saving it is, I'm sure Glenn said earlier on that people's generally living longer. So I kind of get my head around how you can, like, make savings in that. If anything, you should be putting more money into it. And if there is going to be savings, can you tell us what areas them savings is going to be in? Please.
I'll happily take that one, Councillor Purvis. Yes, so just because there's a saving doesn't mean, weirdly, perversely, in the way that we present things, that there's actually not more money being spent in there. It means, so, you know, when adult social care precepts being added, for example, in previous years. That money's going into adult social care. It's just that they've found efficiencies as they've been looking at their budget, that they can deliver the services the same quality or better and in a more efficient and effective way. Whether that's, you know, people living longer at home, which is something that we really want to see because it's a better place. You don't want to go and live in a care home if you can avoid it, possibly. Shall I say? Not that they're not perfectly nice places to be, but you want to live in your own home for as long as possible. And the care packages that we deliver to do that, for example, are much more cost effective than permanent residential care. But there's a million and one things that factor into that. And what I would encourage is if you're able to attend the meeting that will be chaired, I think, presumably by Councillor Bourne, of all councillors in terms of the next bit of the budget consultation, that's a place where you'll get that granular detail from officers about, and you can dig in as much as you want. This is very much the sort of the heads up bit.
You okay with that, Mark? Thank you. Jeff, I believe you're next.
Thanks, Chair. It's all been very civilised, hasn't it? If you think about what sort of went on in here the other day, this has been remarkable, especially when you're outnumbered by the opposition, about 2-1.
Bring it on, Jeff. Come on.
I just need to be reminded, because it seems so long ago now, you said your budget will put the council tax up by 2%? Is that right?
We didn't say that, but that is highly likely. Yes.
So you didn't mention how much it was going up at all, did you not? I was wondering how I thought I'd missed it.
You didn't miss out. It wasn't included, but it's said that we can go up to 2%, and that's where we'll be.
Okay. I mean, I just assumed you were putting it up by the maximum, and then there's the 1%, so it's actually going up 3%. And this is the thing that annoys me every year, and especially annoys me this year, when we were told that the adult social care is a national problem. It's a national disgrace, and it should be funded nationally to put it right. And the government had this wonderful plan where it was all going to be sorted out, and then we get pronouncements, and apparently everybody's going to pay for it through their national insurance, apart from for the first few years it's going to be the money's going to be used to support the NHS. So I just get annoyed that this 1% for adult social care is some kind of we'll not mention it, it'll just go through. And the council taxpayers of Northumberland are being expected to support the elderly in the county when it's absolutely a national problem. And I don't know how many people actually pay council tax in Northumberland. There's 150,000 houses, and it's probably most of the money comes out of one bank. I don't know whether, I don't know what people's personal circumstances are, but it kind of irks me that there's only a very few people in Northumberland actually paying towards the adult social care, when we all know that it's a national problem and national government should have got a hold of this and put it right. And when they tried to put it right, they stuck it on national insurance and hived most of it off into the NHS. So it's going to be years before we actually get a handle on it. So, and I realise it's not your fault, but hey, I've got to have a go at you somehow. So anyway, 3% is what it's going to be. So will you please, when it comes to it, say it's 3%, not, it's 2% plus 1% for this specific thing, because this specific thing is still on the council tax bill, and it's still coming out of my bank, and it's still being used to support the council's work as a whole. And just the other thing I wanted to mention, when you say everybody it gets a treater plant, I don't know how many of you have done this, but actually, if you all just close your eyes now and think of a tree, right? Because I think of a tree, it's like, I don't know, 30 feet high, massive branches and beautiful leaves and, well, they're whips, aren't they, really? I mean, the things we actually get to plant are like, well, they're whips. So it's going to be donkey's years before they actually start action against climate change. It's going to be years before, and I understand, quite happily to be corrected, but we plant all these things, and in 5 years' time, Leon and his team will go along and thin them out.
Well, I'll happily make
it. I mean, I think it is actually what will happen, and so the only other thing I was going to just bring up, just to stick the knife in a bit, was of all the whips we've planted so far, how you just think about how many, do we actually know how many mature trees were destroyed by Storm Irwin, and how much impact the loss of those trees is having on our climate change agenda?
So happy to deal with some of that, Councillor Reid, that Storm Irwin's made an awful lot of space for those new trees to be planted. And the thing about trees is that, you know, if you're planting them for climate change, it's not much good planting ones that are already 100 years old. You need to plant the smaller ones, otherwise they don't absorb any carbon as they get bigger. And so, you know, we may be the whipping boys in that sense, but, you know, it's those ones that you need to plant. Every tree starts from an acorn or what have you at some stage, doesn't it? And so you know, it's a very good way, as Councillor Sanderson has mentioned in reply to Councillor Ball, of getting people to buy into exactly what is happening with climate, and to being in some way, shape or form part of that process, no matter what part they play. When it comes to the bit on adult social care, greater minds than ours, isn't it? You know, when governments propose something at election time and tell the public what the likely implications are of it, the public don't always like to hear it. But something needs to happen to make sure that we get that correct. You know, when it comes to the precept, ultimately, whether you're paying it to the national government or the local government, you're paying it, aren't you? And you know, to some degree, I have sympathy with what you've said, and others. Well, you know, tax is tax, you know, wherever it's paid. In terms of the specific funding that was mentioned, I know that some of it's initially going to COVID recovery and making sure that we're clearing the backlog with then in terms of the NHS waiting lists and all of those operations and all those things that have gone on hold as a result of COVID. And it is an important thing to be dealt with, but we must tackle the issues around adult social care and the fact that people are living longer. It's a matter of priority. Totally agree with you. There was other parts in your question. I can't recall.
Sorry, Chair, I can't remember what I said now anyway, so don't worry too much about it.
I've got one more bit, which is that I'm happy to describe increases in terms of council tax in that way, so long as we can break it down, because obviously when we put a tax bill out, you've got the police bit, you've got adult social care bit, you've got our bit, and so on and so forth. So there's, you know, and you've got the precept from the town councils and so on as well. So, you know, it's happy to present it in multiple ways.
Thank you. Are you happy with that, Jeff? Yeah, answers?
Have you ever known me be happy,
No. I'm sure you'll be having a good go at our budget meeting, the same as every other person in this room will be, because
Yes,
we're just waiting with bated breath to see what's happening, because it all sounds wonderful tonight, but we know it'll not be. Right.
I look forward to seeing the detail, Chair.
Exactly. I've got Anna. Would you like to come in?
Yeah, I just want to make a point on just what Mark picked up on and Jeff picked up on the adult social care, and I just want to just point out it is a real concern of mine on that amount of efficiencies, because you kind of touched on there, Richard, that, you know, we're trying to make people stay at home for longer, because that is the benefit for everybody to be in their own houses. But my real concern is that if you are trying to make efficiencies by people not going into care homes, there will still be extra care needed for people to stay at home. And I really have real worries about the workforce, because that is the biggest problem that we have in Northumberland and across other parts of the county at the moment. So it's really just a point on that.
So, and thank you very much.
I think we totally agree with you about that, because it's really very depressing at the minute, and people are living longer, and these services need to be maintained, and in fact are increased because to maintain high standards with the people who've worked very hard all their lives, and they deserve to have, you know, in later life to have good housing facilities and not being penalised with rising rents, rates, and all the amenities that's rising at this present moment in time. So I just wonder if Richard would like to come back in there.
Yeah, happily. So it's a good point, well made. And in terms of, obviously, the budget is produced in association with officers who deliver these services, and they're comfortable and confident that they can deliver these services without impacting on the frontline services and the care packages that are provided. So that's the first and most important bit, because that's what you would want and expect. When it comes to delivering the services themselves, there are care packages that if we don't retain people in the industry, we're going to struggle to provide, and that mustn't happen. And so the two things that went through Cabinet on Tuesday, we're looking to directly address that. The first bit was about delivering a real living wage. First of all, it's the right thing to do, and secondly, it's a necessary thing to do if we're going to retain staff and make sure that we can look after residents. And then in a separate paper, as I recall, there was a bonus that went in as well, passported through from national government, but specifically saying, to help retain staff and to say thank you to them for everything that they've done through the COVID pandemic, and probably will still have to do in the coming months, whilst hopefully Omicron is not going to be presumably the last variant and the last wave that we get, but hopefully we can in a very short space of time start to live with COVID more effectively.
Thank you. I don't think there's anyone else got their hands raised. Well, with that, sorry, Liz, did you want to come in? Sorry.
Yeah, can I just ask Glenn and Richard, can we have copies of the slides, because I can't see them from here?
You can, yes. We'll ask if I could ask the Democratic Services team to circulate that, or ask me to circulate it. By the way,
Rebecca saying yes. That'll happen, Liz. Thank you. Well, thank you very, very much to Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Wearmouth. It's been very lengthy and very helpful presentation, and I'm sure everyone's is taken on board what you're saying, and hopefully that it could be amicable at one out of the budget meeting, and that we can only just hope. But thank you very, very much. And I don't know if you would like to get away, gentlemen, because obviously you've got a long way to go and you've got another meeting.
I will do. Thank you, Chair. I will not watch again the fire presentation, which I think you might have on next to you, or if you is it local services. But I would love to have stayed. I've got a town council meeting next.
We do understand that. But thank you very, very much, gentlemen, and safe journey home. I'll just give you a second, unless Ray wants to come in, because I know everybody's waiting, and I don't know who's going to lead. Is Ray, Mick, or Peter going to lead?
Peter's here, Chair, just to take in what happens with the meeting. So
right.
He's more than welcome to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My councillors here.
Good night.
I can just say once again, Parliament has been a very long and challenging year for our frontline services. Our refuse crews were obviously working over the entire Christmas period. We also had the cleansing operatives working to ensure litter bins and emptied and streets remained clean in some challenging areas. In addition to this, tree and neat neighbourhood services teams continue to work hard and recover from the devastation caused by Storm Arwen. Our priority immediately after the storm was to assist with the clearance of the road network. We then moved into cemeteries and other public areas with high footfall. Now the tree teams will move into our plantations and urban woodlands in due course, and a full recovery that will take time. We thank you for your support and patience during this time. I'm sure you, as Councillor Sanders mentioned, the leader, join me in recognising the praise of the huge efforts from our frontline teams. over what continues to be an exceedingly difficult period. On COVID, we've had 7 positive cases within the workforce over the last 2 weeks, with staff following the new guidelines. Currently, there is only 2 staff still off in our depot and due to return shortly. On the waste services, the refuse collection worked very well over the Christmas period. As you're aware, we brought a day forward, but we've had very few complaints on that. And speaking to the crews that were out, there was a 95% presentation on just about all of the days over the Christmas. We collected around 750 tonnes of residual waste over the Christmas and New Year period, which was 42 tonne more than the previous residual collection. Now, this is still averaging 40 to 50 tonne above the collections before COVID. Now, on the grounds maintenance side of things, progress on winter works was initially impacted by Storm Arwen. We're confident we recover from this and complete the programme as planned. I'd ask to pass on any work requests you might still have. We're now starting to plan for our summer works. The leaf clearance has been carried out in most areas, and any areas of concern, if you can just bring that to my attention, we'll deal with. We do have an additional large mechanical sweeper in the area. It's covering mainly the south of the River Blythe area and that, along with the ones we've got in some Stakeford depot. We have started the process of recruiting our seasonal staff for the coming summer period. Adverts are going out shortly. And on the street cleansing is just business as usual, the cleansing within areas. We have some work commencing very shortly on Brock Lane and West Sleepburn area, which is leading from the tip, which is really heavily lit at times. And that's getting done with traffic management in place. I do believe it's for next Thursday. And we have assisted local volunteer groups with collections after their litter picks. We're continuing to support them going forward. And lately the collections have been taken around the Camist and West Bedlington area. Sleepburn. So that concludes my report, Chair. I'm willing to take any comments or queries.
Thank you very much, Ray, for your report.
There's a surprise, Caroline. Sorry,
yeah,
Councillor Vaughan.
Right, Caroline, would you like to come in?
This is actually a nice one for once.
Oh.
I just want to say a massive thank you to you and all your team. The Storm Arwen response was absolutely phenomenal. I've had a number of businesses within Ashington Central contact me direct, and I have passed some of them emails on just to say thank you to the team, because they're actually, they might be small, but they are mighty, and they work their socks off in response to Storm Arwen. So just a massive thank you.
I'm sure Peter's taken note of that, Councillor.
Right,
thank you. Kath, would you like to come in?
I would. It's about Ridley Park, Ray. We've been talking in the town council. We run events in Ridley Park, mainly at Easter time. And the thing is the fountains, they're never switched on at that time. They don't go on till about May or something like that later on. Is there by any chance, because we do a good event on, a lot of people ask for these water fountains to be on, and normally it's put the cost to the town council. But what we're looking at is we have a partnership going, and I would have thought that could just be put on instead of us having to pay an extra lot of money out. Is there a possibility for it?
We're looking into that now, Councillor, within the partnership with Blythe Town Council, as well as you're aware. We're just seeing what is needed, and it's just getting the water checks done and everything else. So we'll certainly look at it. I know you're on about the funding side, but we will look at that.
But to no extra cost to the Blythe Town Council. Thanks.
Right.
Thank you. Jeff, would you like to come in?
Yeah, it was just about the storm. And I must say I was well impressed when I drove round my division. That anything that was stopping traffic or blocking footpaths, you'd virtually, I don't know how you got to it so quickly, but you did well. So thanks for that. But there are a few trees still kind of lying, and I've had a couple of residents ring me up about it. And I think what I said was, well, if the tree's blown over and it's just lying on the grass and it's not blocking the road and it's not blocking the path, we'll know about it. But obviously it can't fall any further and it's not obstructing anything, and there'll be other things that've got to get done first but they will know about it and they will be coming for it eventually. Was that the correct thing to say?
Yes, Councillor, that's right. That's what I was just saying in the report. They are getting round to the sort of, and I said plantations and urban woodlands, but they are working their way through estates as well. So as long as it's safe and in place, they will eventually get there.
Sorry, could I just supplementary, if we've got any idea of when that might happen? I realise it's how long's a piece of string, because there's lots of things up north, a lot worse. But can I be saying, you know, it's going to be the summer before they get to them, or is it going to be before that?
Sorry, Chair, if I can come back to you on that, Councillor, because I'll have to speak to the tree team and the tree management. Yeah.
Just so when I get asked them.
Certainly. I will certainly come back on that.
Thank you, Jeff. Anna, would you like to come in?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, obviously there's a lot of trees that have been cut down and there's a lot of wood just lying there, and I have had some comments made to me that the public just seem to be taking these trees. Is that been agreed by county? To my mind, it would help you because then, but there has been a few residents just ask me if that's been agreed by anybody.
I'll speak to the Green Spaces officer to see if there's anything being done and send you an email on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Brian, would you like to come in?
Thank you. Really just a couple of questions, but more comment first of all. Well done to Peter and yourself for the teams. A lot of work that has been done through that storm was incredible. But not only that, the residents accepted that they would always get their bins emptied. They would always have their basic services done. Whereas I know in other authorities throughout the country that they suffered massively. And I know that's your forte in life, your forte to get that done, and you did it, and you did it very well. So well done to you and your team. And the whole idea of dealing with the storm damage was fantastic. My only concerns are it's the aftermath of that and how one would keep the towns clean, tidy. I did highlight the fact of, you know, the road sweepers not being functional. And my question is, one, how long have they not been working? And two, I know that, you know, the whole idea, we should have been looking at the idea of having a rapid response of a higher service straight away into there and getting it done. Just also wanted to know about your thoughts, because this is the time we start talking about the control of weeds. As you know, in July, August of last year, Councillor Ball and I had a visit with yourself and heads of departments, and sadly never got a full report back of what you thought, what the ideas were. And really, there were some places in there where weeds were about a foot high, and I did take on board that they had been sprayed, but they only went from a green to a dirty yellow. So what we need to do is we need a proper policy this year that when the weeds are sprayed, that they're removed ASAP. Let's not wait until they die off, because it just looks dirty. It takes about a month for them to die off. So look at it, try and have a different strategy, and even if the idea of removing the weeds and then spraying afterwards, when they start to come through, it's control. And same again, it's great that the leader is going to go back to Ashington and have a look through, but nothing happened from the last one. So the reality is, you know, unless there's going to be a plan set forward, not only for Ashington but for the southeast part to control the weeds, I just can't see there being any way forward. It's just going to be another summer of the towns looking bad. Now you've got to understand that our concerns weren't mine. It's not Councillor Ball's, it's not Councillor Parry's, Councillor Gallagher's. It came from residents who complained on numerous occasions to myself, to the town council, to MPs, and it had to go right to the top of the table before we even got that visit. And it was an embarrassing drive around. It was embarrassing for us because we're having to highlight failure, but also it was embarrassing for you because there was failure there and you could see it. So the reality is, can we improve on all of that next summer, or this summer coming, and let our local southeast area towns look better.
Thank you, Brian. Ray, would you like to reply? And
I'll,
then I've got
I'll take
Daniel.
that on board,
And
Councillor.
then-
We are planning a different strategy for weeds this year coming up, so I'm sure you'll see a difference going forward.
Thank you, Ray. Daniel, I'm terribly sorry, I didn't see your hand up before.
Thanks, Chair. Hi, Ray. I was just wondering, Ray, do you manage the bandstand as well, or not?
Is that the photo with the moat?
Yeah, I went up this morning. Just wanted to see if you could pass on your thanks to your team, who I saw were trying to sort that issue out this morning. Another question regarding the lights. Do we know why they keep going off? Because I think since they came back on in 2017, this is the third or fourth time they've been off now. I don't know if there's an electrical fault or something.
Sorry, Councillor, if I can reply. Sorry to interrupt. No, I don't know about the lights. I will pass on to street lighting and ask them if it is street lighting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Would any other officer like to come in for a see anything, any report, quick update or not? Mick, would you know?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. You'll be pleased to note, a very brief report. All highways inspector and maintenance crews have continued to work on inspecting and fixing carriageway defects, making repairs and making safe Category 1 defects across the South East area. The NCC Gully emptier is fully deployed, dealing with reported issues in cyclic maintenance. A replacement NCC Gully emptier was due next month, 4 across the county, as part of the fleet replacement programme, but as a lot of things that delayed, we're still waiting for 9 new gritters to come this year. They're all being delayed coming into the country from Europe. The NCC Gully emptier that does come in, it's a higher specified, more powerful emptier, so it should give it the capacity to carry out more works required. And as I said before, well, that came out of nowhere and it was very fortuitous. An additional gully emptier has been deployed next week, targeting whole road sections. This work will be starting in the Ashington ward. By whole road section, I mean it'll be doing the specific road throughout, where it goes through different wards. So, and it's all going to get recorded on this new system we've got called Carbon Tech, which is very impressive. It'll give us a lot of information when challenged. Tarmac patching, we carried out tarmac patching schemes on Delaval Gardens, Blyth, Peter Street, Blyth, Coronation Street, Blyth. The area team who work for me are continuously looking at and programming future drainage improvement works. Footway carriageway and LTP resurfacing has been carried out at Newsham Road, Blyth. It's due to be topped this week, and Norham Road in Ashington is also due to be topped off this week. We've got a regeneration scheme starting in Bow Street and Blyth, which started this week. The site's been set up. That's a £2.7 million scheme. It'll be lasting in about 48 weeks. So we've been engaging with the locals around them and explaining, trying to lessen the impact on them. Winter services and winter maintenance. Winter services continued. Omicron has had no real delivery effect on the service, as we use the rest shift to cover any missing drivers. This is well within our pre-planned arrangements. We've had an average winter so far, both in snow and precautionary gritting. We are currently having a small stock restock across the county. This will ensure we have sufficient resilience levels for the remainder of the winter period. This includes a 5,000 tonne strategic store we have in Powerburn. And that's it. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mick. Could I just ask one before I bring Kath in? May I ask if all the grid bins and the estates, etc., have they been, all the grids been taken out, new ones replaced, please, just in case we do have a nasty, bit nasty weather. So
I'll look at Mr Gallagher there for a specific reason.
Well, I thought I would get one in before him, you see.
No, he's mentioned that one on numerous occasions. We've the instruction given out to him is to take out what's there, break it up. If it's not suitable, bring it away and replace it. Replace the slot within that.
Would it be possible to find out exactly where you've been and where you intend to go? Is that too much to ask?
We've got about 1,600 grit bins across the county, and to give that sort of information back, the guys know the wards and they do them within a certain specific area, so they will do it. But when you're in an operational situation, it's not always as easy to follow. But if I can get you that information, I will.
Thank you very much, Mick. I believe Caroline had a hand up. Brian, did you have your hand?
I'll come up.
Because I'm conscious of the time. Bear in mind, we'll have to suspend standing orders at 7 o'clock and we'll still have the fire and rescue services. So if people can keep their questions, please, as brief as possible, because obviously the team's been here for a long time, and I do appreciate the fact that they're in. So I've got Caroline. Oh, sorry, I've got Kath first, Caroline, and then Daniel and Brian. But please, very brief, because we're conscious of the time. Thank you.
Mine is very, very brief. Home zone, Mick. Shall we come back to that again? Disraeli Street is so bad now. You said you've been patching up roadworks and that. The home zone is absolutely a mess. So can we have another look at that and see what you can do with that, please?
We put that forward for an LTP scheme a while ago, and it was seemed for some reason to be pushed off the list.
Again? 4 years down the line?
All we can do is nominate it off the back of what we found from the inspectors. I was actually up there the other day walking through it. My son was getting an injection down at the centre. Yeah. And I had a walk around there with the dog while I was on holiday, and you could see the state of the road. So I'm pushing it forward yet again and trying to put a little bit more behind it this time to see what I can get.
Can I just ask, though, if we can do some kind of repairs, especially on their main roads, until we can get something done with the home zone? It really needs attention, honestly. It's so bad. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. I'll look into that.
Thank you. Caroline?
Mine's nice and quick. Right, do you know when the likes of me and other councillors have to keep on ringing for the same issues over and over again, and the teams come out to the same area? So for me, it's the end of Green Lane, it's Station Road. There's other areas that continue to flood with problems with the drains, North Seaton Road as well. Is there any system in play that you record these same issues coming up over and over again that you're getting called out to then clean the drains? Because there's obviously something deeper and causing more of a problem. So is there any systems in play that it's not just a case of popping out, sort the issue, clear the road, and then it happens again a week later, next heavy rain? So yeah, that's just what I would like to know. Thank you.
No problem. The best way to do it is actually to ring in and to record it online or phone into it. Then it gets on the MARI system. And then we run reports on the MARI system to say we've got issues. If we've got a different level, we'll respond and we'll clean the lines. Then we've got equipment down in the area office even before we get the bigger companies out, which we can go and do cameras down the drains for investigation. Something could be as simple as a root ingress in a line, the drainage line between gullies that caused the problem. So there is a set response, there's a set process that we go through.
Can I quickly come back? Sorry.
Just move on, please,
Okay.
because it's nearly 6:30 and we'll have to suspend that and go to 7. I'm sure you could take that up with Mick if you don't mind. Brian, do you need to come in quickly, and then Daniel?
Just very, very quickly, the new microservicing programme will probably be starting as the summer comes on. Can we monitor that? Because in the past it hasn't really been that good. There's been a lot of failure, so we can keep a tighter hold on that. Welcome the gully cleaning machine coming, and same again if we can have an update of what gullies have been cleaned. And I know that in the future, in the past, we've had a conversation around concrete roads in Ashington and how expensive it is to repair them. And I know that there's supposed to be some sort of a new system coming forward to cover concrete in respect of maybe a tarmac tubbing, or just so we can get some longevity on the roads. And that doesn't cover my ward, it covers the whole of the southeast part, because there's concrete roads all over.
Mick, could I just ask if you could perhaps come back at maybe next month, and you just, if you've got any more information about these issues, could you please bring it to the next meeting if you don't mind? And then because I know I'm sorry, but I'm very conscious of time tonight. Daniel?
Nice and quick there, Mick. Just to know, can we have a grit bin put outside South Beach Academy, please?
If you can drop me an email with the location that you specifically wanted, we'll score it against the criteria that we have in place and take it from there.
Thank you. Well, I can't see any more hands up, so I'll let these gentlemen get away home if they want, unless they want to stay and listen to the next report. But I did. We do appreciate you coming, because you've been extremely busy and continue to do so with the debris and etc. of Storm Arwen. It's been a very challenging time for you all, but thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chair.
We do appreciate it. I know sometimes we could be challenging, but don't take it personal.
It's always an experience.
But I'm sure that, Mick and you'll have some issues, because I'm sure if the councillors maybe it'll give you a ring to see, and then you could bring it the next time, to the lab.
I've got lots of issues.
Well, I didn't like to say that, Mick. Peter. Take care. Take care and safe journey home, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, that'd be marvellous. Thank you so much. Take care.
Terry, I'm terribly sorry, councillors, but you know, are aware of the time, conscious, and I'm sure if there's any issues, please get in touch with Rebecca or myself if you want anything brought specifically to do with local services. You know, for the next meeting, and I'm sure that will be able to address everything that you've got. You know, thank you very much. Right, sorry about that. I'm terribly sorry. Time is getting on, but I would like to introduce on item number, I think we're all back to normal. I think it is item number 11 on our agenda, because I've been, 12, sorry. But I would like to introduce, I've lost my page now, the Fire and Rescue report, and I would like to introduce Chief Officer Paul Headley, who will be leading the team, and I'm sure that as his officers wish to speak, you know, then Paul will be introducing them when, you know, as time progresses. Thank you, Paul. I'm terribly sorry for your long wait.
No, I did. I was very mindful that before Councillor Sanderson spoke, you said you didn't want to be here all night. So as the night's been going on, I've just been. You'll be pleased to hear this is going to be an abridged version. I've been taking bits out, so hopefully I'll get through a little bit quicker than the last two evenings. But good evening, everybody, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity just to briefly bring to the Ashington and Blyth LAC's awareness the latest draft of our community safety community risk management plan, which will cover the period from 1st of April 2022 through the 4-year period to the 31st of March 2026. I know you've got copies of it in your packs. There was a very short covering report with it, but this will hopefully put some additional context to it. I've brought along with me Deputy Chief Officer Graham Binning and Deborah Brown, who's our Strategic Policy Risk and Performance Officer. Graham and Deborah have been very heavily involved in the drafting of the report, which is why they're here. And at the back of the room, we've got another officer. We've got Station Manager Kerry Shotton from our Fire Safety Department, who's here just to observe, but he's also helping with some of the public consultation. As I've said, you'll be pleased to hear it's not going to be a page turn. I've tried to cut my notes down, so this is really just about trying to bring the plan to your attention, explain why we have to do it, what's in it, and invite participation in the public consultation exercise. I'll scrap my whole slide. Suffice to say, this is a statutory duty we have to have. There's a document called the Fire and Rescue Service National Framework, which is a copy of it is on the slide there. And within that, there are a number of priorities which fire authorities must adhere to discharge the functions of the fire and rescue service. The two priorities which are most relevant to this community risk management plan are the second and fourth on that slide, second and fourth bullets, which is identify and assess the full range of foreseeable fire and rescue service related risks that their area face, and really importantly be accountable to the communities for the service they provide. We are the fire and rescue service for your constituents and your ward areas, and this public consultation, which again is a statutory requirement, is their opportunity to shape and influence what we actually do for them. So we're delighted to be here tonight. In terms of the community risk management plan itself, there are a number of things which the plan must do. It's got to reflect up-to-date risk analysis. It must demonstrate how prevention, protection and response activities will best be used to prevent and mitigate the impact of any identified risks. And just to reassure councillors, sitting underneath the community risk management plan, we do have separate strategic plans for each of the main pillars of our service. So the protection side, the community prevention side and the operational response. As I'm sure you would expect, they work together holistically and come together under the CRMP to look to mitigate and drive down community risk across Northumberland. We've also got to outline required service delivery outcomes, set out our strategy and risk-based inspection programmes. So this is part of the department Kerry works for, our statutory fire safety obligations. It has to cover at least a 3-year period. This one covers 4. Reflect effective consultation throughout its development. And the bottom bullet point on there, which I'm really looking for some feedback from the public, especially, is that it should be easily accessible and publicly available. But by that, we also want it to be easily understood. So I have said on the last 2 presentations that the Fire and Rescue Service is second only to the military in the use of 3-letter acronyms and abbreviations and technical jargon. We've really tried very hard to craft this in a way that anybody who picks it up should be able to read and understand it without being from a professional fire and rescue service background. So hopefully we've covered that off effectively. Again, just to give some reassurance to councillors, this is absolutely not a plan which is set in stone. Albeit it covers a 4-year time period, it absolutely has to be flexible and able to respond to new and emerging risks and any unforeseen impacts. You know, COVID being an excellent example. So on that basis, what we do every year, we will produce an annual update, which again is put out for public, not necessarily public consultation, but it's made publicly available. And that's a look back at what we've done against our priorities for the previous 12 months. It's a look forward to what we want to do. It's a review of our performance, but it's also our opportunity just to make sure that the Fire and Rescue Service is still focusing on the risks which impact our communities right across Northumberland. And it's important because it does give us that ability to change the plan within the 4 years. If anything significant needs changing or there is new emerging risk which we haven't previously identified, we've then got the opportunity to come back out for public consultation and take elected members and public views on our proposals. We don't deliver it or develop it in isolation as well. We work with a whole range of partners, and we have for a number of years now used a company who assist us in the development of the risk management and the risk evaluation modelling. This just allows us to have much greater confidence that we define and communicate those risks more effectively, and that we've got some confidence that we can evidence how we match our resources that we have to the risk in a really appropriate manner. Ultimately, what the Community Risk Management Plan is a document to provide assurance to the Fire Authority, to the County Council and to our communities that as far as reasonably practicable, bearing in mind we're the smallest fire and rescue service in mainland UK by, other than in geographical size, we're the seventh largest in England anyway, but on every other measure we're the smallest fire and rescue service in the UK. So we've got to be proportionate in what we do, and what we absolutely strive to do as professional officers is make sure that those resources that we have are targeted in the right place against the right risk and are delivering the biggest value or adding value for our residents and communities. So we need to have it sitting as an assurance document that we've got the right resources in the right place at the right times to respond effectively to the risks that we have. We have had a slight departure from previous plans. They've previously been called integrated risk management plans or just the fire and rescue plan. In this community risk management plan, we've had a slight departure in so much as we're trying just to explain to people the process that we've undertaken to analyse and understand the risk within Northumberland. We think that's important, that our communities and public have got that understanding. So we have put a little bit more detail into it than previous versions and iterations. What we do use is a pretty standard definition of risk, so a combination of the likelihood and and consequences of a hazardous event, and that definition is also fairly common across the fire and rescue service sector. So you've got some confidence that we're applying some consistency with other fire and rescue services if you wanted to benchmark us against them. So in the case of fire and rescue related risks, that hazardous event are the incidents that we attend. I'm really pleased to say that in the last 10 years we've been really effective in reducing the number of incidents we attend. So the slide, if you can't see it, does mention that in the last 10 years we've reduced the incident numbers by about 20%. We're about 10 or 11% less incidents this year than the previous year, albeit that's obviously been impacted by COVID and the lockdowns which we've all had to endure. But 10 incident types which we respond to account for about 93% of all of the incidents and mobilisations by the service. So where we focus a lot of our attention and efforts and activity is on those main 10 incident types to try and drive those down, not just because it means that we free up capacity internally so that we can do a lot more of the prevention and community engagement activity to continue that virtuous circle of driving incidents down, but it's also got financial sort of benefits for us. It just means that we can have more risk critical training. We don't impact community safety events, so that there's a real benefit for us in looking at those which are the highest volumes. That doesn't mean to say that we don't look at incidents which are very infrequent but very high impact, because they're obviously much more critical from a life and an injury risk. So some of the things that we do in terms of utilising different data sources to allow us to have a bit of confidence that we're constructing this on a really firm foundation is we use population and demographic data, we use indices of mass deprivation, we use public health data, crime data, building and road network data. So all of that comes together, led by Graham and Deborah's team, into that analysis and evaluation, which then sort of feeds into the production of the CRMP. We've got a couple of slides. So dwelling fires is just in there as an example. So within the full draft document that you've been provided with, you'll probably notice that I think it's about 13 or 14 different incident types which we'll talk about in there before we get to emerging risks. That obviously covers all of the 10 main incident types that we have and a couple of others. And what it talks about is what we're doing now or what we've done historically to drive down that risk, but against each of those incident types, there should be quite a detailed list of bullets where we've identified what we could be doing more of or differently to try and reduce the impact even further. So even on incident types like dwelling fires, where we've been really successful at reducing the number, because obviously they're a horrendous thing to be a victim of, that where we get, from a fire related perspective in any case, it's where we get most of our unfortunate fire fatalities and fire injuries. We've been really successful at driving them down, but we're still looking to do more. And in most cases, there's always more you can do to improve how you're delivering your service. It's just sometimes it then becomes a discussion point and a professional judgment on how you allocate your capacity and resource to get best utility and extract maximum value from what you've got available to you, both your capacity, your resources, and your people. I've just talked through that one, so I'll just skip it on. The plan also talks about emerging risks. So not only should we just be trying to identify what we currently respond to and make sure that we can try and reduce that level of activity. But it's incumbent on us to try and forecast what might be coming along, reasonably foreseeable events. So the things which are in there are climate change and extreme weather, pandemic, future housing and commercial development, and one of the things which we've talked about during Councillor Sanderson and Wearmouth's budget session, the fact that we are projecting for a significantly ageing demographic within Northumberland, and all of the increased vulnerability that brings along with it. So for things like that, for things like climate change, for things like weather-related impacts, we've always planned for them, but we are now sort of coming to the point where we're looking to try and get upstream of these things becoming a real issue forward. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the emerging risks in there, and there's two which are specific to the southeast, which is British World and Ashington and Blyth and Tyne Railway Line, which I can give reassurance on. We're working very closely already with colleagues in Northumberland County Council through the plan departments. Our fire safety department is heavily involved in the planning for British World Factory. And it doesn't mean that it will actually change our risk demographic. It might not mean that we need additional resources or different training or new equipment. The point of it is we're trying to get early indications here all of the time. And within the lifespan of this community risk management plan, there will be other new things which come in, which we will again have to try and get ahead of. If our professional judgment is that we do need more resources, or we do need different equipment, or we do need more funding for different types of training, we will then come and ask for it. I'm not going to go through that slide. It's aims and priorities for 22-23. Both sides of that slide are already in the community risk management plan. So what we're doing specifically, or what we're trying to focus our activity on to make Northumberland safer, and the priorities for the next, or the coming financial year. As I've said, I'm not going to run through it, and I am conscious of time, Chair, but I just want you to be aware that what our current thinking is that we intend 2022-23 to be a year where we undertake a number of fairly significant reviews and evaluations of our current service models and our current service delivery. Again, that might not throw up anything which is going to be a significant change, but I think it's just incumbent upon us to give yourselves, as the elected members and the fire authority, just the reassurance that we have got the right resources that we need. We are looking to deliver the service effectively and efficiently. In 2022-23, we'll also see us focus a lot of our attention on responding to the latest inspector report, which was published in December. So there are recommendations in there for what we should be doing differently or better. They have already been incorporated into a revised community continuous improvement plan, which has been audited by NCC's internal audit. So again, I hope you've got some reassurance that we're on top of things there. And whilst there isn't anything particularly significant for the first year of the draft plan, as we work through that 2022-23 period, and we'll get the outcomes of those reviews and evaluations, there may well be issues which surface which we've got to bring back to forums like this for further discussion. So, we do wholeheartedly welcome as many views as we can on this draft proposal. The links to the community risk, the community risk management plan are on all of our social media, and there will be a specific link to it on a new website which will be launching this week. So there will be some publicity on that, and the links within the slide and which are included in the packs will take you to an online survey which you can fill in. There's a number of questions, 5 questions I think, which you can answer, and it doesn't really you know, we're not really that bothered if people feel that they don't need to answer all 5 questions or they've just got general comments. There was some really good, just, you know, fairly minor but fairly important feedback we got from the last 2 local area committees. So we just welcome everything we can to just make the report as robust and resilient as it can possibly be, because only by taking on board what we get back through this consultation process can we just have that additional assurance that the plan is as good as we can possibly make it. So I'll end there, Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We're more than happy to take questions, but if I could leave with just a plea, it's that if anyone has got anything that they want, it doesn't matter how insignificant they think it might be, we want to hear it and get it fed into the consultation.
Well, thank you very, very much, Paul, for that. We do appreciate it, and you know, you're getting a fantastic report. I just hope you've got all the resources that you need to be able to, you know, carry out. That's the problem, isn't it?
That was 12 minutes faster than I've managed to get it done. You'll be pleased to hear, and my tongue's sticking to the roof now.
Ken, I've got you, and then I believe I've got Caroline. Brian, did you have your hand up or not? No, thank you. And then I've got Jeff. Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Chair. It's an excellent report, this, Paul. It's fully comprehensive. There's a lot of good things going on. But I had to smile when I saw the response standards.
Yeah.
Where you referred to fire engines instead of fire appliances.
Yes.
Is there a reason for that?
There is. We were actually told to call them fire engines because fire appliances might not mean that much to members of the public. So, as I mentioned earlier, Councillor, we've tried to write it so that any lay person picking it up will be able to understand it. I'll always call them fire appliances. It's just, you know, if I use my 8-year-old son as an example, not that he's going to be commenting on the CRMP, but he calls them fire engines, and most of his friends do. So it's as simple as that. Aye, it's as simple as that.
Thank you, Ken.
But it's a really good point, and I just think, you know, and even getting feedback on things like that, on the language, the terminology, and the context in which it's been written is important for us. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, Caroline.
Right, I just want to ask, when does the consultation end? Would you be able to send the links out to us so we can share across our networks as well, just so we can get more responses? And I just wanted on record just to say massive thank you to you and the teams across Northumberland. During COVID, when you've been working with Northumberland communities together, sometimes you have been the only faces some of the residents have seen for a long time, and I've had it fed back that it has made such a difference, like Hatch Meadows and Ashington, it has made that difference, and you really have made some people's days. And just thank you for the community engagement and for getting involved in the One Spec Christmas campaign as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and that's greatly appreciated, and we'll be sure to pass that on to the team so we're out on the streets doing the really important engagement work during those very difficult times. Thank you. In terms of your question about the Deborah, can I just ask you, do you want to cover off the consultation period and whether we can just circulate all of the links?
Yes, so it closes on the 16th of February, and yes, no problem at all. We'll send the links round to you. Sorry, I'm not sure if you quite caught up. Yeah, we'll circulate the links, no problem at all.
Thank you. Jeff, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thanks. I always love this. But this one is really, you've surpassed yourself. It's excellent. I mean, the layout, not just the content, it's just, you know, some of them can, I think the last one was a bit, well, it wasn't as good as this. So whoever designed this, you know, never mind the words, but actually the layout and all the information in there, they've done a first-class job. So thanks for that.
They have, Councillor, thanks for that, and we will pass that on. I cannot take any credit for any of the... I can take credit for some of the content. I can't take any credit for the format and the layout.
Well, but it's what you said before as well. It's in English that people don't understand. Sometimes this stuff gets too technical, and it's, you know, you're calling them fire engines. And I would have always thought you would call them fire engines, and yet you call them fire appliances. There you go.
Fire appliances.
When I'm out with my grandchildren, I shall say there's a fire appliance from now on. But anyway, the couple of things that it covers 4 years, and the stats that are in it are current. So how are you gonna? Is it just what it is? If you know what I mean, because it says here there's 52,000 dwellings. Well, in 4 years' time, there's going to be more than that. So,
sorry, councillor. What we do is those annual updates. So there will be a year 1 update, or a year 2 update, a year 3 update, a year 4 update. So when we do those documents and come to develop them, we check that all of the. If there's any facts and figures in the original one, they're updated at that point.
That answers the question, which is really all I needed. The only thing that I was going to bring up, it's not really a criticism of you. All of these different ways of consulting that you've got in here, can a person use each one of them? So if there are 5 ways of doing this, could I answer 5 times? Is there any way you can make certain that you're not getting multiple?
I'm going to pass this one over to Graham and Deborah, because we'll have liaised very closely with colleagues in NCC who are the correct avenue to go through for the public consultation. But I guess what you're saying is there a health check on this, or is there a way of just making sure that you get one opportunity to respond and you can't just keep
basically,
submitting multiple?
Particularly if I had a grudge against the fire brigade for whatever reason, you send it by post, you put it on the Facebook page, you use the consultation, and it's actually only just one instead of 5. That's really
I'll see if I can get you a technical response.
I'm going to pass you to Deborah in a second to pick that one up, but because it is we have a similar issue and question with when Her Majesty's Inspectorate come in and give our staff a staff survey, for that very reason, that if somebody had a particular issue that they wanted to really hammer home, it's quite difficult to control. The bit I did want to pick up though, Councillor, and I know we met briefly on the virtual overview and scrutiny committee a number of months ago. We've taken a lot of care and a lot of time, and I think you've reflected that in the way this community risk management plan looks. No more so in the fact it's called a community risk management plan. You'll know it was previously called an integrated risk management plan, which sometimes begged a question of people saying, well, what's integrated about it, which you could explain. But I think now, as we come out the back of 2 years of COVID and the vulnerabilities that people took into COVID lockdowns 2 years ago, my job has been absolutely to come in and shape what the future offering of a firefighter in the Fire and Rescue Service in Northumberland is, and where and when we can work across organisational boundaries with health, social care, third sector, etc. So I think what this community risk management plan does is it allows us to genuinely shape an offering to the people and the communities within Northumberland, as well as the environmental and physical risks that we face going forward as well. So that's the easy question. I'm going to pass you over to Deborah to see if we've got some detail on the consultation.
Thanks, Graham. It's just been clarified that I was clearly brought along to answer the difficult questions. I guess the short answer is there's no foolproof way of protecting that. So if somebody wanted to answer the questions and if they had a grudge, then that would probably come out. But the analysis deals with sort of themes, if you like. So if somebody has a particular issue, it's the issue we'll consider rather than the number of respondents that respond to that, if that makes sense. So we will consider and we will change the plan accordingly, but based on themes and key issues rather than how many respondents have told us that.
Brian, would you like to come in? And I think is that the last question because it's nearly 7 o'clock. So, Brian, I'll bring you.
Thank you very much. The fire service we had a conversation in Communities and Place Scrutiny this afternoon at 2 o'clock. And it was great to say that it was a nice conversation and a respected service that we all admired. You are the jewel in the crown of Northumberland County Council, and you have been for a number of years. You're very, very professional. But I think even more so over the last 2 years, you mentioned it about COVID, you've took different roles on there, and it's just been fantastic. You've come out with flying colours. Again, the recent storm that we've just had there, you know, the feedback that came from the fire service was fantastic. The world is changing, and I take on board what you're trying to do on page 68, emerging risks, and one of them is a climate change and extreme weather, and that's a shifting monster all the time. But I've got the confidence within your organisation that you'll deal with that for Northumberland in the highest level. So once again, from the council and from residents of Northumberland, thank you very, very much for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Well, I would just like to reiterate what colleagues has all said this evening, that you're doing an absolutely fantastic job, and you know, you go above and beyond, and I'm sure with the storm and COVID, you've all volunteered and you know, within the fire service and rescue team, and so we do really appreciate everything that you've done and continue to do so, because it's still difficult times, and you know, you never know what's around the corner. But thank you ever so much, and I'm terribly sorry that your presentation hasn't been as long as you anticipated, but I have asked Deborah, and she said that she will be sharing, you know, the slides with everybody. So if anybody would just like to see the content of all the slides, it'll be available, and Deborah will be sending it out. But thank you very much, Paul, Deborah, Graham and Kerry, for attending this evening, and we look forward to your next presentation. But please stay safe and well, and keep up your fantastic work, because it's really appreciated, like my colleagues have stated. Thank you so much. And just on time anyway. We won't have to suspend standing orders after all. Thank you. So just moving swiftly on, and I'm not being rude because it's nearly 7 o'clock. Item number 13 on the agenda, just to note the local area council's work programme. Item 14, is there any urgent business? I haven't received any. No, thank you very much. And the next meeting will be held on Wednesday, the 16th of February. So with that, with nothing further to do, thank you very, very much, everyone that's attended. This afternoon's been a very long meeting from planning onwards. Thank you, and safe journey home, and Happy New Year to everyone.